The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy, Donovan, and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll be covering all latest news, answering your questions, and concluding the final countdown. You can support our show by subscribing to the Social Suplex Podcast Network or to Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tee store, ProWrestlingTees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by NJPWEXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com. With features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. Visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, how was your birthday weekend?
Oh, man. I went too hard, bro.
That's not a surprise.
And when I say went too hard, I literally mean like I splurged on like my unhealthy eating habits. I've been pretty good during this quarantine, but man, bro, like I haven't been going out, but like, holy crap. So, I mean, my birthday was Friday, but I pretty much treated the whole entire week. I took Friday off and I treated the whole weekend like a giant birthday party. So, I mean, and that kind of started like Thursday. So like Thursday, I didn't eat so good. Like, I don't even remember what I had, but I know it wasn't good for me. And then like Friday morning, woke up, I got treated to some incredible custom luchador themed donuts for my birthday, which were like fire. If you're in the Tampa Bay area, Hole in One Donuts, they're like some of the best donuts I've had in this area, and I'm pretty snobby about my donut tastes and preferences. So really, really good. And then we like went out to the pool, had like a pool day, grilled. I mean, like, and then I don't know, the rest of the weekend, like, just, bro, like, oh, man, I had sushi last night. I had Cracker Barrel in the early part of that morning. Saturday, I went out to Dats in Tampa. And I went to the place in Hyde Park Village, the Sprinkles, where they do the cupcakes that come out of the wall. Mm. So, I mean, like, I was doing it big, man. Just, you know, I wasn't really partying. I was just grubbing like hardcore. But yeah, I had a really good time. I got some pretty cool gifts. Shout out to Floyd Johnson from All Things Elite. He is sending me, it's really weird. Like, I've always watched New Japan my whole life and been like this big fan of it, but I didn't like really advertise it, so people didn't know. But now that with the podcast, people know me as like the New Japan guy. So like all my gifts this year were like New Japan gifts, which is like kind of cool, but also kind of like, oh, is that what people know about me now? Like, this is my identity. But yeah, he got me a New Japan hoodie, which is pretty cool. And then our listeners did get us the Lucky Box, which we're going to open up here in a minute, which is pretty awesome. I haven't seen that yet. But my girlfriend, she bought me a pretty rare and incredible, present. So what she ended up getting me is an authentic New Japan branded shirt from 1998. It's from the show. It's from the Osaka Dome show where the main event was Chono against, I forget who it was against. I actually think it was Fujinami, and he won the. It was Fujinami, and it was the first time that he ever won. Actually, the only time he ever won the IWGP title. It's also the same show where they introduced the junior tag titles for the first time. So the shirt is awesome. It's literally like never been worn, had never been opened. You could only get this shirt at the actual event. So she got it from like an official dealer. The guy's name is 10 Dojo Man. You have to actually spell it out. 10 Dojo Man on eBay. And I looked at his stuff. He's got some really incredible, like he's like a vintage like Puroresu collector. So he's got a lot of really, really cool memorabilia. So if you guys are listening, check him out. But she was going, this shirt's awesome. It's got Hashimoto, Tenryu, Fujinami, Chono. Who else is on it? Sasaki and Don Fry. So like, yeah, it's really, really awesome. She wants me to wear it out, but I feel bad. I don't, cause bro, like, we be in these hot ass, wrestling shows. I be sweating, there's neck beards everywhere. Like I'm going to ruin this like prized collector shirt. Like I want to put it in a frame. She's like, no, I want you to wear it. I want you to flex on people. Like let them know, But she was looking. She was gonna get me this other shirt. It's still for sale. If anyone's listening, it's like it's online. It's from the final countdown from the Tokyo Dome show in '95. So it's got Sting, Tony Palmore, Antonio Inoki, and Gerard Gordeau on there from the '95 martial arts tournament. And it's a really cool shirt. She was about to buy it for me, but then she's like, she actually did buy it. She bought it and then backed out because she went to Cage Match and looked up the star ratings of the match and saw that, like, she saw the reviews of the event and they were like, this is one of the worst events in the history of professional wrestling. These matches are literally like the worst matches of the year, which they are. But the shirt's incredible. And like, she was like, oh, heck no. She's like, I'm not buying him a shirt from an event that has a bunch of negative star ratings. Like,
oh my gosh, dude.
Little did she know that it would have been like, like I would wear like a Dungeon of Doom shirt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
for the ironic effect of it. Like that's kind of what that shirt would be like. Plus the shirt looks awesome, but yeah.
Dude, you have a girl that knows how to use Cage Match.
I think that was her first time ever using it.
You lock that down, son.
So yeah, it's a pretty good birthday. Are we ready to open the lucky box?
Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready?
All right. Yeah.
All right. So got a nice little yellow New Japan bag here that came in the box.
I already got one of those.
All right. So let's see here. Shirt number 1. You have a small.
Come on, Switchblade. Come on, Switchblade.
A small Fighting Spirit USA shirt from the Boston, Philadelphia, New York tour.
Okay, it's small.
Yeah, that's a gimmick with the lucky boxes. The shirts are random sizes.
Well, part of me was kind of thinking if they were random, like we could always use them as like giveaways or prizes or something. So I don't know. We'll see.
Next up, got a medium Super J Cup 2019 shirt.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I gotta be able to see these. I haven't seen either of them.
All right, hold on. Put it up with the camera.
My bad.
All right, so here's the Super J Cup shirt right
here. That shirt's kind of fire. Right now I'm working out, so maybe I'll get down to fighting weight where I'll be able to wear that because that shirt's pretty fire.
And here is the Fighting Spirit shirt.
That shirt's pretty cool too.
Dates on the back there. All right, next up here we have a 2XL.
What is going on?
Retirement Tiger Hattori. Thank you, Tiger shirt.
All right. Do we have a large shirt in there at all?
Let's see. This is the last shirt here. Last shirt. It's an extra large.
Are you kidding me?
Madison Square Garden, King of Sports, New Japan Pro Wrestling shirt. I don't think I've ever seen this shirt before.
I've never seen that shirt. Is there anything on the back?
Just the New Japan, the line mark, and then the Madison Square Garden trademark.
That's an extremely understated and plain shirt, huh? You know, I kind of feel like I got gypped on my Lucky Box.
Lucky Box is not so lucky.
Like, I feel like I took the gamble, but they didn't deliver, like, the goods. I don't know. But those are cool shirts. Like, I'm sure we will find people who fit those sizes. Maybe I'll try in the medium. We'll see. But I'm definitely not XL, and I'm definitely not small or double X, so that's cool.
So, yeah, man.
But I'm still appreciative to you, Jeremy, and to the listeners who donated for this monumentous prize. So happy birthday to me.
And one last thing here before we get moving on to the news. So we told you guys last week about our new concept. So voting for next week's episode will be available at 12 noon Eastern Time on Tuesday. So whenever you listen to this, Tuesday, 12 Eastern Time, poll will be up for 24 hours. And the theme of the poll this week is Bullet Club leaders. So your options to vote for will be Prince Devitt, AJ Styles, Kenny Omega, and Switchblade Jay White. We're going to be joined by Voices of Wrestling's Chris Samsa on next week's episode. So you guys go out there, you vote, you pick which Bullet Club leader you want us to kind of do a deep dive on, and each of us will pick match recommendations from whoever you guys vote on, and then we'll have a little discussion on that person and talk about the matches we watched.
Why didn't you include Carl Anderson or the Young Bucks as leaders of the Bullet Club? Or Cody?
I know some people.
Cody was a leader.
You could throw Cody out there. You can throw Adam Cole out there.
Adam Cole was a leader at one point. What's going on? I don't understand.
Went with the leaders in the Japanese territory, the main singles heavyweight leaders.
If people pick Kenny, I'm gonna choose a DDT match. I'm gonna choose something from his junior run in All Japan, or some PWG. Nah, but I'm really looking forward to that, actually. So that will be a nice departure from this. How long has this been going on? 6 weeks?
Yeah, final countdown. This is the sixth week of that. So yeah.
So as much as I enjoy this, I'll be glad to get to something that's a little more static and a little more not so long term. So that's kind of cool. And it's always good to have Chris on the show. I can't wait to review these Jay White matches, so it's going to be really good.
Yeah, I highly doubt that our fan base is going to vote for the Switchblade.
You don't know.
Hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, looking forward to having Chris on the show. He's dying to do some audio, so glad to have him on. We're going to have some other guests throughout the week. So there's a bunch of different themes that we have planned for you guys for the theme of the poll, so be good stuff.
I kind of secretly hope they pick AJ, but
yeah, we don't want to sway the poll or anything or sway the votes, but I think AJ would be a pretty cool one also.
Bro, they're gonna pick Kenny. Like, I don't have to sway the vote. We need to dissuade the votes to make it fair. Because come on, Fergal.
Oh my gosh. But
nice. And here's the cool thing too with this. When we invite the guests on, they're kind of picking. We've given them a template of a lot of different options that we've kind of pre-selected, but they're kind of choosing which one they want to do. So that's going to be the cool thing. So like Chris actually chose to do the Bullet Club Leaders here. So, that's kind of a topic that he probably feels passionate about or, is interested in. And I can't wait to talk to him about it.
Nice. So moving on to the news here. So first thing we need to talk about is Harold May, New Japan president. He addresses the future of New Japan in a YouTube video last week. And to kind of give just a quick summary of it, he gave 3 reasons for not running show at this time. 1, to protect the health and safety of the wrestlers and staff. 2, the ability to use venues. And 3, the corporate social responsibility. May noted that New Japan is an industry leader in both Japan and worldwide. He said the first step back would be empty arena matches. He said this will happen when emergency restrictions from the government are lifted and COVID-19 cases decline, and only if matches can take place in a properly disinfected and safe setting. He said that they would start with matches in a safe environment in Japan, as well as their dojo in Carson, California, just outside of LA.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this video. I thought that, from top to bottom, since the start of this pandemic, New Japan has done an exemplary job, just with how they've handled everything, how they've treated their talent, how they've treated the fans. But, it started to get to a point where we were kind of going on and not hearing an official word from them. We were getting press releases where they're pushing things back, which was great, but we weren't kind of getting like, what is your stance? What is the roadmap? What is happening? And so Harold May kind of stepping in and doing this kind of really showed his him as a leader, as like the face of the company, being the person to kind of step out and just speak to everybody very candidly about what the company's stance is, what the roadmap back is, what their financial situation looks like. And I thought he did a really great job.
Yeah, I thought it was a great video. He could have stepped his tech game up, maybe use some PowerPoint slides instead of just pulling off this stuff off of a whiteboard or whatever he was using. But yeah, I thought he was very well spoken, had some great solid points, and it was a great video kind of addressing everything. I'm
glad he didn't use, more of the budget for the high tech, shenanigans. See, Jeremy, that's why you're not running the company, because you be spending more money, run them into the ground, man. Like fiscal responsibility, son.
Yeah, that's why he's in charge.
No, but on that note, I guess I've got a couple questions. So one, they're saying that they're going to eventually do empty arena shows, and once those 3 criteria are kind of met, they'll come back, and then eventually they'll do like a social distanced, limited engagement sort of, opening for fans to come back to matches once things are in place. My question is, I think it's great, if they end up doing empty arena shows, but I guess my question is, because they don't have the same kind of like, say, quote unquote television deal that they're dependent on for their well-being the way that, say, like AEW or WWE does in the States. Aside from the notoriety, how do they benefit? Like, because I can't imagine they're making money off of it if they run a show, And in fact, I think in many cases they'll be spending more money to procure the venue. Does that sound wrong, or am I right? I don't know how to make money.
You're definitely right, and that's something I wasn't even thinking about with all this empty arena stuff. It's like, yeah, they're going to be spending money to secure the venue, spending money on the production, the camera crew to get it streamed on New Japan World.
Talent.
Yeah, they've been paying the talent, but still, the talent.
But I'm sure downside
travel.
guarantees are not the same as like show dates and stuff like that.
Right. So yeah, there's a lot of costs, and so obviously they'll have the New Japan World revenue, but there's not the revenue of live gate people coming to watch the show.
Trust me, there's nobody that's more hungry for New Japan Wrestling than us, but at the same time, I don't want them to do something that will hurt the financial standings of the company. So I'm just wondering, long term, how sustainable that is, or what the game plan is. Is that something that like they'll run a couple shows that way? Is that just how it's going to be for the rest of the year? I would like some more definitive answers once. I'm sure they're trying to figure it out as well, but that's kind of my question. I guess the other thing I'm wondering is, and we've kind of talked about this in the past, like, what does it look like when they come back? I think the biggest thing is, this is a company that's known for tournaments. G1's on the horizon. I think if they come back for, say, G1, there's really no storytelling that no storylines that need to be in place. It's kind of just like, we've been on hiatus. Here's the G1. Let's run it. I think that's maybe the easiest way to kind of get things back. But then at the same time, think about an empty arena G1. How enticing is that idea to is that better than not having a G1? Or, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, kind of mixed feelings, man. I mean, like we mentioned last week, I think New Japan would do a great job in producing an empty arena show. I think it would be very similar to the UFC shows that have been running out of Jacksonville. It'll be, feel like you're watching a sport, and the guys will be focusing on wrestling and, not trying to pretend like they're talking to a crowd or pandering to a crowd that's not there. So I think it'll be a great production, but at the same time, G1, best tournament of the year. It's where most of the match of the year candidates come out of, and a big part of a match is the crowd reaction, the atmosphere, and the New Japan guys, obviously they're super talented, super high work rate, and they will go out there and they will tell a story, and I'm sure it would be a great tournament if it was all empty arena, but at the same time, it's like that passion, that emotion from the fans, that moment where you want Ibushi to beat Jay White, like you don't get that without the crowd. So yeah, kind of mixed feelings there.
And you're absolutely right, but at the same time, you look back at the history of wrestling, and there are times, as much as wrestling companies like to live in a bubble and like to live in a self-contained universe, that's not always realistic when it comes to cultural events, societal shifts and big historical moments. Obviously, a pandemic is, something that kind of fits in that criteria. We've seen where there have been shifts in the business, whether it be economic or working style or, different attitudes, just things that have happened externally that have affected the way business has been run or the way people work or the way that fans perceive the performers. And so I guess what I'm thinking is if they do end up doing empty arena shows, there's a very good chance it ends up heavily affecting the way that New Japan is presented as opposed to how it was prior to the pandemic, and how they work their matches, the style of their work, the length of the matches. If they want to, because I can't imagine Okada going out there and having 45-minute epics in this kind of environment. If they try that, they'll fail. I'll be pretty honest with you. And I can't imagine a lot of the, that's the thing. Like if you look at New Japan over the past few years, and it's something we love because they do it on such a high level and it's great, but a lot of their main event style matches are just very, very long and arduous and kind of epic. And that's great in the right scenario and setting. But I think in an empty arena, it'll be very, very hard to pull something like that off. So I'm just wondering what the work even looks like. It might be beneficial in some ways to kind of see what these guys, come up with working in an empty arena. Part of me is kind of excited by that, but there's another part of me that's like, well, what if, I'm sure there will be some misses, and this is a company that we're not used to seeing a lot of misses from. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm wondering, and that's another thing too, is that New Japan can be very stubborn and very conservative in the way that they handle things. They might not adjust anything, and that might be a mistake. So yeah, I'm very curious what New Japan Empty Arena wrestling looks like,
Yeah. And so, talking about G1, got some comments here from Hiromu Takahashi in Tokyo Sports, and he has a wild idea. He wants to hold a junior and heavyweight festival at the same time. His idea is to hold Best of Super Junior and G1 Climax at the same time in October, with each tournament final taking place on the same day. We have a question here from Reddit user PSAN91. What do you think about Hirumu's recent comments that the Best of Super Junior should be canceled and postponed, possibly having the finals on the same night as the G1 finals?
Was this an idea I had a few weeks ago?
We talked about it a couple weeks ago about potentially doing Super Juniors and G1 in the same tour.
That was my idea, right?
I don't remember. I remember us talking about it.
I feel like I came up with that on the spot, but I've kind of forgotten.
Yeah.
Bro, Hiromu's fucking listening to our podcast.
well, dude, Japan is one of the top countries that Social Suplex Podcast Network is listened to. So,
I mean, like, stranger things have happened. There have been people that we have found out listen to this podcast. And we're like, wait, what?
Right.
over the years, it's been kind of crazy. So I mean, that wouldn't be too shocking. But
and he's been working on English, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be incredible. Super Juniors is obviously a tournament that we love passionately. We love covering it every year, and I hate the idea that it wouldn't be happening. I mean, we've thrown out every scenario for how they could do it, whether it be using, all their just, local guys that they have in the country, bringing in talent from other companies within Japan, postponing it to a later date. I mean, there's a lot of different ways they could go about doing it, but I don't want them to cancel it. I hope it's just postponed. And I think that idea is awesome because, if they end up doing a G1, why not do a Super Juniors at the same time? More bang for your buck. I mean, you'd get a ton of singles matches for, the 20 or so nights or however long it goes. And everyone has a goal that they're like, it gives everyone a purpose to be on the card, why they're there, why they're working. And we don't have to worry so much about like the externals. I mean, you look at like, say, AEW, and also NXT. I mean, two companies that are doing tournaments. I think like WWE is doing one on their main roster. And that's been something that's like simple form storytelling that just gives guys a simple motivation why they're wrestling, and the story kind of tells itself. You do that on the bigger scale with New Japan because you've got their two most prestigious tournaments happening simultaneously. I mean, that gives you a real reason to invest, and it's and not nitpick so much the environment because the matches have meaning. Right.
And, you kind of lose those undercard matches, those tag matches that kind of set up the other matches. But I think it's kind of worth it if you are having, best Super Junior matches on the undercard. And, you have a stacked card of, 4 junior matches, 4 heavyweight matches from both tournaments.
That's true. But, there are some creative things they could be doing as well. We've talked about seconds, and we see seconding happen a lot during tournaments. And maybe if you want to build something up, maybe you have like the heavyweights coming out to second some of their junior stablemates to kind of like create tension. I'm not saying like there should be tons of interference and stuff like that, but I'm saying like, maybe a post-match attack between the two rivals on the opposite ends. You could do things like that.
Yeah, they can definitely do that.
So yeah, I mean, we love the idea. I hope New Japan, that their corporate office, reacts favorably to this and, considers doing it. But then again, we don't know when they're coming back. I mean, we're just being very hopeful at this point because, I mean, they could come back or, G1 could be the next one to get the axe.
Yeah, I hope not.
Also, speaking of which, I know this is off topic, but just think we've been talking a lot about empty arena wrestling. Have you seen Timothy Thatcher and Matt Riddle this week?
I have. It was NXT Presents Bloodsport.
Bro, I just watched it. It's freaking awesome, bro.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a modern Americanized version of like Battle Arts or like UWF. Like, I loved it.
Yeah, it was probably one of the better matches coming out of this quarantine era. Really great stuff. Obviously, Riddle and Thatcher, two of the best wrestlers out there today. They have history working in Evolve and other indies. And yeah, it was a really solid match. Really, that kind of blood sport, kind of shoot style type of matchup. It was real good.
I know not everybody can work that style, but when I was watching them do that, I was like, the guys that come out of the dojo system, maybe they're not as adept at every aspect of like MMA and grappling, but the type of grappling that they do is very reminiscent to what we saw in that match. And I was like, I bet you the empty arena matches, if they were kept like hard hitting and intense and grappling based like that, they'd probably be really good.
Yeah, I think, incorporate some of that shoot style, but suplexes, kind of fighting for submission, some of that amateur wrestling. This would be great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about it here in a little bit, but, you know, I just finished watching the recommended match of the week, and the whole time I was watching that, I was just thinking about the dojo system and how like dojo style, young boy style wrestling works no matter whether there's a big crowd, small crowd, or no crowd. I'm pretty sure that sort of thing will get over. So yeah, interested to see it.
So last few news items here. There's a column up with Hiroki Goto called Change Reaction, the first of 2 parts. There's also a video up on the website called Bullet Club 5 Shots with Tama Tonga. And I believe it's a video with Tama Tonga and Gino Gambino and some other members of Bullet Club kind of talking about some Bullet Club history. And there's also a column called 7 in the Chamber with Tama Tonga talking about Bullet Club 7 years. And that's a 2-part column. The first part is up right now.
Before we move on, I need to bring this up. It's not on the docket, but Tama Tonga put out some very interesting tweets this morning. One tweet involved a picture of Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes kissing, and then another one of Kenny and Marty Scurll kissing. And he was talking about, like, he's not afraid to go to war.
And that we're not done yet.
Yeah, we're not done yet. And he said something about Villain Enterprises, or something like that. Bro, what's the deal?
I don't know. Maybe he's trying to shoot an angle for when stuff comes back.
Bro, God, they about to invade AEW at Double or Nothing.
Tama lives in Florida.
I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I saw that today, and I was
trying to open the door.
Are we going to get the payoff to the Bullet Club Civil War storyline? Is this what you're telling me? Because I'm all about that. I would love to see a Kenny Omega match.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he's just messing around, or if there's any kind of smoke to that fire. I mean, obviously, New Japan and Ring of Honor are still working together, so I can definitely see a Villain Enterprises matchup in the future, but not so sure about Elite match, so we'll see about that.
Well, there was confirmation that Marty was supposed to be on the Super Juniors tour this year, so yeah, that's kind of disappointing we didn't get him in that tour this year, but yeah. One last thing. The free match of the week this week I noticed was Desperado against Hiromu Takahashi from Best of Super Juniors in 2018. Mm-hmm. That match is freaking raw. Like, if you guys haven't seen it, you need to definitely check that match out. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah. I remember liking that one a lot. Yeah, that was the match where I was like, all right, Desperado is like raw.
Yeah, that's the match that set up their title match for later on after Hiromu won the belt on the next tour. So yeah, really, really, really great match. I think if you guys haven't seen it, you should check it out.
Then last 2 things here. These are not New Japan related, but they're kind of 2 big news items that kind of cover the wrestling world. I just want to mention real quick. So Shad Gaspar, one half of Crime Time, former WWE superstar, went missing. TMZ reported today that police are desperately searching for Gaspar after he and his son were among a group of swimmers caught in a strong rip current around 4 p.m. with lifeguards racing into the water to pull everyone out. The reports state that Gaspar's son was rescued, with one witness telling that Gaspar directed rescuers to help his son first. And I know that there have been some follow-ups all throughout the day, and it sounds like the search, that officials are giving up on the search on Chad Gaspar.
They called off the search earlier today, the LA County Police, which that's really devastating to hear. Man, yeah, thank God. I'm not a father. I don't have any kids. I know you don't either, Jeremy, but I mean, when it came down to that moment, he, basically told them to take care of his son before him. And that really shows what kind of champion this man was, that he obviously, I mean, it's your son, but like he put him before himself. And so, thank God he was saved. But this is a really terrible situation. It's horrible to hear this news. It doesn't look good. Obviously, like bleak's a very, appropriate word, I would say. I'm hoping maybe there's some sort of miracle or something, but at this point, it doesn't look good.
Yeah, very sad. Chad, I'm not sure how old he is, but I mean, he's still a pretty relatively young guy. Had a full career ahead of him. Him and JTG were still doing indie dates and doing shows. We were going to see them in Tampa WrestleMania weekend. They were on the For the Culture show, but also with the coronavirus that got canceled. And I always enjoyed Crime Time in WWE. Had some cool stuff. Nice little feud with Jericho for the Raw Tag Team titles. So yeah, this is definitely very sad. Condolences to that family. We will be praying for that family, and hopefully, like you said, that there will be a miracle with Shad Gaspard. And then the other sad piece of news that we have to mention here is Larry Kasanka of 411 Mania has passed away. Some of you might not be familiar with who Larry is. Some of you should know Larry if you're kind of a hardcore fan. He literally wrote reviews for everything that hit air for 401mania.com. I have referenced Larry's reviews here on this show for New Japan reviews and literally everything. AEW Dark, Dynamite, NXT UK, 205 Live. I always check out Larry's reviews and his star ratings to kind of grasp to see if we're kind of on the same page, kind of what he was thinking on matches. One of the most respected reviewers and wrestling media pundits out there, contributed so much to this business, was a workhorse, was a great human being, and it's just heartbreaking hearing about him passing away.
Yeah, the report the press release that 411 Mania dropped for him today says, in the news that has left us all absolutely devastated, we're extremely sad to announce the passing of Larry Kasanka. Larry was obviously an icon for his writing, but more importantly, he was an amazing husband and father who leaves behind a family that loves him dearly. He was truly a good man who was full of positivity and had such a great sense of humor. Words can't express how much he will be missed. We're going to be putting together a more detailed tribute to Larry. Right now, though, we're all just heartbroken. And I did know that he was sick. I remember there was a period of time, I don't know if it was like sometime last year or a few months back, but I remember he had stopped doing reviews briefly, and it was due to an illness. I didn't know all the details of that.
Right. I know he got his leg amputated.
That's right. He had to have an amputation, which I don't want to speculate what that is, but it sounds like it could be like a diabetes release or related sort of illness. I could be wrong on that, but like Jeremy mentioned, I mean, almost anything, all the major promotions, like he literally covered like Impact, Ring of Honor, MLW, WWE, all of WWE.
Everything.
We're talking like everything.
Raw,
NXT,
SmackDown, everything.
Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live. He was also covering like Ring of Honor. He was covering AEW. He was covering New Japan. And then he regularly covered Lucha Libre, CMLL, AAA. He was covering like, a lot of even WXW, Progress, Rev Pro. I mean, most of the major companies that are out there, Larry was watching it and writing about it in real time. Like that same evening, taking nothing away from a lot of the other wrestling news sites and journalists and reviewers, people that cover the sport, podcasters. I don't know anyone else that did as much as he does, including like Dave Meltzer, including whoever else you want to name out there. He just the sheer volume of wrestling that he was consuming and writing about was a huge amount. And not only that, but his writing was really great. I found his match reviews to be very accurate. I didn't always agree with them, but I'll tell you this, like as far as when me and Jeremy do our year-end review awards, we typically look at a few different sources that we think are, authoritative. We look at Dave Meltzer, we look at, Cage Match and Grapple, we look at our own ratings, but Larry Kasanka is one of those other people that we look at almost every single time. And I find that, this is just my opinion, that as much as I appreciate and respect Dave Meltzer, I think Larry Kasanka's ratings are more accurate. Just personally, I've always thought that. And, kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit, this show relied a lot on his reviews for the matches. We would utilize that because when you're watching a match, it is sometimes difficult to do what he did, to literally digest an entire show and then accurately compile notes about it, and in a way to where you can write about it or talk about it. That's not always easy. And there's a lot of people out there who do coverage and who write things, but in my opinion, there's no one who did it at the level that Larry Kazanko is doing it when it comes to writing. And he's left a huge void in the wrestling industry. I never knew him. We didn't know him, but because I've been reading his stuff for so long, this actually hits me pretty hard. I'm kind of bummed out doing the show a little bit.
Yeah, dude. My Wednesday or my Thursday morning routine is opening up 401 Mania and checking out the AEW and NXT star ratings. I did that religiously every Thursday morning to see what Larry's reviews were, and what I if I'm on the kind of same page and what we should check out from NXT and stuff like that. So. Yeah.
I know it sounds kind of selfish that I'm one of my thoughts at this point is well, who's going to do what he did? And the answer is nobody is. So you kind of feel that loss that the wrestling industry, a lot of people didn't know Larry, but a lot of people did. And at the end of the day, though, regardless of what he was going through with his own personal life, this was someone who, really loved this industry, loved this business, and poured a lot of himself into it. So, that's what we're going to keep doing. My thoughts and, condolences go out to his family. It's a really terrible thing to hear. It was actually really shocking. I even just saw his tweets just a day ago. It's really sad.
Yeah. So I will be praying for the Kasanka family, and thoughts and condolences to their family and for the loss, and to everyone over at 401 Mania.
I will say I hope someone kind of takes up the mantle, and I don't even mean just one person individually. I hope that what his contributions to the industry were maybe on some level inspire more people to do more of what he did, because we need more voices and accurate, intelligent writers who can bring good coverage to this, because there's so many wackos and people looking to be personalities and have hot takes and say crazy stuff. But with Larry, it was just pure good journalistic, integral writing, which you don't see a lot of in the wrestling industry, which is terrible.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's try and pick things up a little bit here. Let's jump over to questions from lovely listeners here at Keeping It Strong Style.
Yes. So let's do that.
First question here from Reddit user Rambone Slam Pig. He says, on Saturday, I watched the Best of Super Junior finals you guys are discussing this week. One thing I really jumped out at me is how much Will Ospreay has improved during that period of time. What do you think his ceiling is as a performer?
Bro, when we were texting today, was that not something I said specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did that jump out to you when you were watching?
Definitely. Yeah. I was watching it. I was like, obviously it's Will Ospreay. I'm like, all right, this match is going to be 5 stars. It's going to be insane. And obviously he was still, doing Sasuke specials and shooting stars and Pip Pip Cheerios and Cheeky Nandos, all his signature spots, but it just was different. He was not as well-rounded as a performer as he is today, and you can clearly see the growth from that Taguchi match up to the Shingo match, and just how much of a better performer he is today.
Yeah, when you watch Will Ospreay from that time period, and don't get me wrong, Will was still having bangers, and he was still special talent, but it's his facials were not as good. His timing was not as good. His pacing was not as good. His storytelling, his feel for the audience in the moment. There's just a lot of things that he is so good at in 2020 that he wasn't as good at. What it reminds me of for fight fans, Will Ospreay reminds me of Manny Pacquiao, to give you a boxing analogy. And what I mean by that is this. Manny Pacquiao eventually became one of the greatest all-around, well-rounded boxers of all time. But when Manny Pacquiao first broke out on the scene, he was an athletic dynamo who didn't do very many things perfectly, but the things that he did do were at such a high level that he was blitzing world-class level guys, and everyone knew he was special because of his physical gifts and his toughness and his athleticism. And then as time went on, he added to his game to where he became a well-rounded guy, so that when eventually that initial explosiveness that he had went away, it did not matter because he's still at the top of the boxing world right now, 20, 30 years later. That's how Will Ospreay is to me. Like when Will Ospreay first broke out, everyone knew he was special. I mean, he's so athletically gifted and he's like this dynamic performer. But a lot of people criticize him because there's a lot of things he didn't do good. And over time, he's changed that. And like when you compare the 2016 and the 2020 Will Ospreay, it is not even the same guy. Like it's crazy.
Blows 2016 Will away.
Yeah. So, I mean, we both noticed it like by leaps and bounds. I mean, it's at the same time, it's not always fair because you're looking at just single matches. We're not looking at like all his body of work from a single year and comparing and contrasting, but this does give you a good sample size to kind of understand. And Will is so good. As far as his ceiling, I mean, I already think Will's one of the best performers alive today. My one thing with Will, the one thing that Will, okay, because I was thinking about this. Daniel Bryan, I looked at his cage match recently, and he had like something like 130, 140 matches rated over like 7.5, which is really high on cage match. I mean, like we're talking like 140, 150. That's crazy. Yeah. And I was like, what other performer from the last 20 years can I think of that might have that kind of like output? And then I was like, well, let's look at Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay's like 120 for 9 years.
Crazy.
But then when you think about it, it's like, okay, yes, Will in some ways is gifted athletically, but then when you compare like Bryan to Will, what are some of the big differences? Well, it's like, Bryan can wrestle comedic, Bryan can wrestle hardcore, he can do shoot style, he can do big WWE main event style, he can do short little squash I mean, there's nothing he can't do. Like he's the perfect all-around well-rounded performer. Plus he's been a top guy and gotten over everywhere. He's drawn money everywhere. Like he's been he gets connected to the crowd everywhere. Whereas like with Will's really great, but like Will's been doing the same kind of match almost everywhere, and that the match he does is fantastic, but like Will hasn't branched out to show those other aspects that a performer like a Daniel Bryanson has. Mm-hmm. And he's also never really been the top guy in too many places. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he's always been he's been an attraction guy. Like he's our high speed, high flying, and now in current times, he's our New Japan attraction, but he's never been like the go-to guy that they like put the big belt on and give the big long title run to. That's where I'd like to see him go, and I think that that's going to be the true test for him as far as a performer. I think he can do all the things I just described. We just haven't seen him do it yet, and I think that's his ceiling as a performer.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Will winning the IWGP Championship. I think he's at that level. I think he can kind of carry that weight, and so yeah, that's how highly I think of Will, and I think once things kind of get back going and get back to normal, I think I could see him in that trajectory of becoming IWGP champion.
I wonder if Will should like leave Chaos and like start his own thing.
Could be interesting.
That might not be a bad idea for someone like him who kind of is looking to break out.
Yeah. Next question here from Reddit user Asayo Jimbo. This is kind of a weird question, but I'm curious what you guys think of Dexter Lumis.
Was he good before when he was Shaw Samuels?
No.
Okay, because I didn't really see much of that. I just kind of knew who he was. We've seen him on the Largo Loop like a bunch of times. I mean, did he just people are talking a lot about him. Did he just make his like debut on TV or something?
He's been featured heavily on TV for the last few weeks now.
Okay, was he around before or no?
Not really. He was in. They had that top prospect tournament that ACH and Cameron Grimes.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
He got eliminated in the first round of that. Then he was off TV, and then they just recently brought him back on TV.
Yeah, because I mean, we see him on the Largo Loop, so we've been seeing him for like a year, maybe a couple years. I don't know exactly, but like I don't know. I'm not a big fan. He might be good, but like his character work, quote unquote, kind of prevents me from even knowing if he is or isn't. But I don't know. I mean, I think, do some people like him? It seems like he's kind of getting popular with some people, but I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of hard to tell because they haven't. Obviously, there's no crowd reaction.
Just like with online, like people online, some people seem to like it, and a lot of people don't. I don't know. We kind of are in an echo chamber, so I don't really know.
Well, the last time I saw him live, it was actually an Evolve show when there was kind of Evolve versus NXT, and he came.
When I heckled him, and he stared at me for a long time and wanted to kill me.
Yeah, he literally stared at you like the whole rest of the match. I barely remember that. I was really drunk. There was like the the NXT United crew. They were all like chanting like "Let's get creepy" and like cheering for him and like. So I think there's some people, some like homegrown NXT fans, some diehard NXT fans that like him and like the gimmick.
Bro, listen, I'm sorry, and like we know people in the NXT United group and they're cool or whatever, but like. Fuck the fans that like chant for the heel like that. Like there are some heels that maybe you might want to chant for, like cool heels, but don't cheer for like the super super creepy like ass like dude like who wants to not get cheered. You know what I'm saying? Like that guy wants heat, and they're like, let's get creepy. It's like, do you not realize this guy's like a serial killer character? He does not want you to say let's get creepy. Like. You're ruining him.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the gimmick. Not a big fan of his ring work. That match from Evolve was like Chinlock City. It was one of the worst matches of the night. Pretty much anytime he's in the ring, it's one of the worst matches on the night. Any show we've seen him. I saw a little bit of his Impact work as Shaw Samuels wasn't, or whatever his name, Sam Shaw, whatever his name was. Wasn't a big fan of that either. So yeah, I'm not a big Dexter Lumis fan, and I'm not digging this babyface run that he's getting on NXT right now.
I hope he comes to New Japan.
Oh boy.
I'm just playing.
Next question here from Reddit user the _true_prophet says, this has some relevance to Best of Super Juniors as there's history of foreigners and other companies getting involved. Do you guys think New Japan should be giving big runs and pushes to outsiders, whether from CMLL, ROH, or even from AEW with the Japan clause? Should guys like Jonathan Gresham, Flip Gordon, or even a CMLL guy do super well in a New Japan tournament?
Well, I mean, if you want to get technical, I mean, they do generally usually give, at least in my estimation, over the past few years, they've always given one or two outsider guys a high point total. Right. Even if we're not seeing those guys in the finals every year, they are making guys from Ring of Honor and guys from CMLL look strong. Marty Scurll comes to mind, and so does Dragon Lee before he was signed.
Yeah, I mean, in past tournaments, guys like Volador Jr. Have done well. We've seen Barvio Cavernario.
That was another one I was thinking of also.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of guys, like you mentioned, they get high, they get in double digits or very high in the block. They don't go to the finals, but they do well. I guess it all depends on the kind of the availability you have on the guy. Like if you're not going to have the guy for majority of the year, you're not going to want to heat him up, and you're not going to be able to use him and capitalize on that heat that you've built up for that guy.
I mean, if you look at it in 2019, Dragon Lee was, lost a tiebreaker, but he was at the top of A block with 14 points. You go to 2018, Marty Scurll has 8 points, and he's tied with Kushida for second place in the B block. I mean, and I think Kushida was maybe champion. No, he wasn't, but that's really high. Again, the year after that, Dragon Lee, 8 points in the A block. So I mean, they always like kind of protect an outside guy. I'm looking at the year before that. For instance, Will Ospreay won the tournament that year, and he wasn't like even fully signed to the company yet.
Right.
Like he was an outsider when he faced Taguchi in 2016. And so on and so forth. Mascara Dorada got 10 points in the B block the year before that. So, and if I keep going on and on like this, you'll find that there's always, at least in modern times, one outsider that does very well.
Ricochet and Kota Ibushi, two guys.
Yep. Those are two other ones. Yeah.
Outside of the company, winning the whole tournament.
Yes. Yeah. But it's exactly what Jeremy said. This sort of thing only really makes sense if you're going to have dates on the person or be able to utilize it to draw money long term for the company. That's why when we did this project, we talked about like Super Delphin being an outsider going to the finals. Liger ran out of opponents. They needed somebody. Minoru Tanaka coming in 2001, like he wasn't fully signed yet, but he was an outsider that they were aspiring to sign. Same thing with Ricochet. Same thing with, Ibushi. Same thing with Dragon Lee. Same thing with Marty Scurll. Like these are all guys they eventually did end up signing. So it's like the whole point of them pushing outside guys is usually because they see potential in them for the company. So it's like, could they do this with Flip or Jonathan Gresham or, I don't know, Dolce Gardenia or something like that? Like, sure, they could, but what benefit does it serve the company if those guys aren't coming back?
Right. It's all about business. So they're going to build a star. You're going to want to bring them back.
Next part of that question, is the business of people like Mox worth giving him importance over guys actually signed long-term and locked down to New Japan? And I guess my answer to that question would be, well, Mox is signed to New Japan.
Right.
Even if it is part-time, he's also one of the biggest, when they signed him, one of the biggest free agents and stars in the world. And he's somebody that had a ton of fresh matchups in the company. So they, were like, we can make a lot of money with this guy. So that's why they pushed him because, for instance, hypothetically, you push Ishii, right? Ishii, we all love him. We all respect him. We all think he deserves it. But Ishii's wrestled everybody in the company already, and he's kind of seen as at one level. And it's like, sure, you could elevate him, but then where are the fresh matchups? What is the upside? Whereas, like, you got a guy like Mox, he's already at an ascended level. He's already fresh. He's fresh out of WWE. Like, that was the time to push him. And, I think I was critical of some of those business decisions at the time. And I'm not entirely going back on them, but at the end of the day, it's about business. Who are they going to make the most money with?
Exactly. It's all about business. Obviously, Mox had a ton of buzz leaving WWE, was a hot star, and once again, you can track New Japan World subscriptions and just interest in the West when Moxley started being featured on those shows. And like I said, it's all about business. He's bringing in more business. You push the guy. Obviously, New Japan fans and the people in backstage like what he's doing, and he's bringing in revenue, so you're going to push the guy.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, why do you do that? You make someone important so that when they lose, it's important for whoever it is you want them to lose to. I don't think everything's worked out perfectly with, like, say, the Mox experiment because, he had the issue where he couldn't get, what was it that he couldn't come back to the country? I can't remember.
There was the tsunami.
There was a tsunami. Then there was a pandemic. Those messed up the booking ideas that they had for him.
And
but at this,
go ahead.
What were you gonna say? I think you were gonna mention his illness too.
No, there was one thing I forgot to mention was just because you mentioned he might be a part timer, but we've seen that he is committed to coming to Japan more than other part-timers we've seen in the past. And he's willing to work some of these smaller tours. And even we've seen him work the undercard in some of these tours. And so even though he's not, quote-unquote, there, quote-unquote, full-time, he was still making a lot more dates than, say, like a Chris Jericho.
Yeah, also, you need that sometimes. You need some guys that are not always there who can be attractions. But what I was mentioning is, like, I think that they had a long-term plan for Mox, and it didn't work out because of things outside of everyone's control. It does remain to be seen what happens when he does come back. But, like, in my opinion, I think he's someone that could lose to, like, say, Naito or Okada and it matter.
Right.
Because he's beaten Suzuki and he's beaten Juice and guys like that. You know what I mean?
He tapped out Shingo.
Yeah, he tapped out Shingo. So that's the idea, is like they're building him up as this big credible star so that he can do the job. So that's the deal.
Yeah. Next question here from either Just a Little Bear 01. Having finished reviewing the whole history of Best of Super Juniors, who impressed you more than expected? And were there any years that stood out for you that were flat out the wrong person won?
When it comes to impressed me more than I expected, I would say two names come to mind for me. One is Taguchi. The second is El Samurai.
Okay. For me, I would say Taguchi's also one too, because just we always hear about Big Mac Taguchi, and we have seen some of that, but to see him in his prime and just how great he was, I was pleasantly surprised by that. And for me, the other name would be Koji Kanemoto, just because I never really knew much about Koji Kanemoto, and as we're doing these reviews, you see he's like he's in a ton of finals. He's pretty much in a majority of these
7 finals.
Yeah, 7 finals. He's pretty much been in the majority of the tournaments that have happened in the past, and high point totals even in the years when he wasn't in the finals. And just seeing, he wrestled different styles of matchups, and he threw in the high flying. He could do the Inokiism style. Like, he was a very well-rounded performer. Had some bangers. The El Samurai match, and what was the other match he had that was really high up there?
The Dr. Wagner Jr. match.
Yeah, the Wagner Jr. match. So, yeah, he was a guy that I instantly gravitated to as we started doing these reviews.
Plus, I've had a lot of praise for the Kakihara match with him as well, which might be my favorite of the Inokiism era matches.
Yeah.
One other name that stands out to me as someone who really over-delivered as opposed to my expectations was Norio Honaga.
Yeah.
We only saw him once, but I loved that match.
And the fact, the previous year he had 2 or 0 points or whatever it was. He was the bottom of the block, and then the next year he's coming back in the finals. It's like, all right.
Yeah. As far as I think the flat out wrong person won, I think that's a harder question to answer because I wasn't really looking at it so much from a booking perspective when we did this review personally. Mm-hmm. I was kind of just looking at it more from a historical perspective. So for me, it wasn't being invested so much in the long-term story as much as taking a screenshot of what occurred once. You know what I mean?
Right.
But were there any times that you thought the wrong guy went over?
Yeah, for me, the one that kind of stands out is the Liger versus Minoru Tanaka match. And again, I don't know contract statuses, what the deal was with Tanaka, but just based off what we were reading, they're trying to build up a new young junior star. Here's Minoru Tanaka guy. He's awesome. He's in the finals with Liger. Liger's well-established, been in the finals multiple times, top junior champion, top junior star. To me, it would have made a lot of sense for Minoru to beat Liger there and to elevate him as top junior.
And playing devil's advocate for you, I understand your stance on that, but at the same time, this was the send-off for Liger as being top junior star.
Yeah.
After he came back from brain surgery. Because he never won another junior title after this, and he never was in the finals ever again. And, he just retired in 2020, so we're talking 19 years ago, and this was the one time that they did a really big, like, he swept the whole tournament, and the story was, like, the young star could Liger pull it out one last time, and they did the nostalgia thing with him, which they never do. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the one time they did it. New Japan never does this. So, like, there's the sentimental part of me. It's like, no, Liger needed to win. Fuck Minoru Tanaka. I kind of thought Minoru Tanaka should have beat Koji Kanemoto in 2002, but then once I realized that Minoru Tanaka was the IWGP champion, it kind of changed my perspective, and I was like, oh, I guess I see why they did that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really say there was ever too many years where I thought the wrong guy went over.
Yeah.
Personally.
For the most part, I mean, all the stories were told very well, and the matches were all laid out well, and I think for the majority of them, the right guy won.
There was a part of me that thought Otani should have beat Wild Pegasus in 95. But I can still, it was booked so well, I could still see why they did that. There's a part of me that thought Delphin should have beat Liger in 94. But I none of these would I say I was flat out. You know what I mean?
Right.
At all. Maybe Otani should have beat Takaiwa in 2000, but they were pushing Takaiwa for a heavyweight run. So, yeah, I don't know. They generally speaking, I think they usually pushed the right guy for most of these.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I guess the fact that we don't have too many definitive answers means that they did a good job.
Yeah. Next question here from Reddit user Highest Fly Flow. Can you guys talk about Hashimoto's desire to start his promotion that New Japan was supposed to facilitate?
Yeah. So I wish I would have prepared for this question. So I could have some historical inaccuracies here, so don't completely quote me on it. I think you guys should probably do your own research. But the way I remember it happening was basically like this. The whole 0-1 thing wasn't even really supposed to be real. Like, it was supposed to be a work. I might have the timeline wrong here, but they were doing the whole feud with Hashimoto and Ogawa. And then the famous incident in 1999 happened where Ogawa shot on Hashimoto in the Tokyo Dome. And still to this day, no one knows really what happened there. But ultimately, they booked this story where it was like Hashimoto's going to come back. He took some time off, he came back, and it's going to be his last chance. And if he doesn't win, then he has to retire, And so Hashimoto, like the former ace of the company, one of the big drawing stars they ever had, would find his redemption against Ogawa in 2000 clean. So he had to leave. And the idea was that they were going to start their own company called 0-1, and it was actually secretly going to be like a New Japan affiliate. And it wasn't going to be a real company. It was just going to kind of be like an offshoot, almost like, say, NXT is really WWE.
Right.
0-1 was supposed to just be New Japan. Like, it wasn't supposed to be its own company. They were just going to create the illusion that Hashimoto was gone while he was still under contract. And then, for whatever reason, the contracts didn't work out. And Hashimoto, and I don't know all the legalities, but I think Hashimoto ended up, like, buying the trademark for 0-1 before they realized it, and then just starting the company. And because New Japan had already put out all the press and everything like that and built it up, then there was buzz about it, and then they worked themselves into a shoot. That's the deal. Like, 0-1 was supposed to be a work, and it turned into a shoot. And also, Also, Hashimoto wasn't supposed to really be gone. Like, it was a stipulation. Like, he has to leave New Japan forever, quote unquote. He's never coming back. Well, he never came back. He left, and that also turned into a shoot. So that's one of those big, classic, terrible business decisions that occurred under the height of Inokiism in 2001-ish. And, a lot of people criticized them for the way that all played out. And it is their fault. It's Inoki's fault. That was stupid of them. They lost a huge money draw and created their own competition, sort of like what Ring of Honor did with AEW.
Yeah. Hashimoto finessed them boys.
Pretty much, yeah. He pulled a Brian Pillman on Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, he won Finesser of the Year that year.
And there could be some more details to the story. I'm not as familiar with it, but that's the way I remember hearing about it.
Gotcha. So his next question, he says, Jeremy, what's your favorite White Claw? I need recommendations. My current favorite is Black Cherry. Thanks for doing the show, guys. Stay safe. Highest fly flow.
Whoa. I drink way more White Claws than Jeremy does.
I don't know, man. During the quarantine era, I've been drinking a lot of White Claws.
Jeremy is secretly like a closeted White Claw drinker. Like, he's just getting drunk every day at home off White Claws. No, he's Joey Janela status right now. We don't even know about it.
The Janela zone, baby. But highest fly flow, my current favorite flavor is Black Cherry also. But I like the mango. Mangoes are top favorite flavor for me as well.
Have you had the new volume number 2, the new flavor pack?
I have not tried the new gimmicks yet.
Bro, you got to try the new gimmicks. They've been out since the quarantine started.
Dude, the stores, I've been getting what I could, man. White Claws, people been cleaning that area out, man.
Bro, up here where I'm at, I have no trouble finding that. I find it with ease. I'll bring you one.
All right.
Yeah. But I gotta tell you guys, hands down, the best flavor is Ruby Grapefruit.
I don't know, man. I'm not really a big fan of the Ruby Grapefruit.
God, Ruby Grapefruit is great. The new flavors are really good though. They're very citrus. So if you like lime, you'd like the new pack. It's got tangerine and lemon. It's really good.
Nice.
Plus the mango's still in there. There's one other one.
Is there
what it is.
Pineapple, I think?
No. So pineapple is not in that pack. Pineapple is newer, and that's part of the 70-calorie version that they have, which is a newer gimmick that they have.
Oh, wow. White Claw just putting it out there, man.
Oh, it's watermelon. Watermelon's really good.
All right. Now that sounds up my alley.
Bro, all 4 of those flavors are really good. So, yeah, I think I like the tangerine the best, believe it or not, out of the new flavors.
All right, I'm gonna have to look out for that gimmick the next time I go to the store.
Yeah.
So, next question from Viking Payne. He says, have you guys by any chance listened to Tama Tonga's new podcast? His stories about his beginnings, struggles, and his dojo experiences, and it being possibly haunted are pretty interesting. Also, on his first episode with Carl Anderson, it sounds like the Good Brothers are coming back to New Japan.
I haven't listened to it, so maybe I'll add it to the rotation. I don't know.
Yeah, I listened to it today, actually. So initially, I saw that Tama Tonga relaunched his podcast because he actually used to have one on the MLW network a while ago. So he relaunched this as his own thing. And originally, when I saw him tweet about it, I thought it was a Patreon only gimmick, and I wasn't gonna pay to listen to Tama Tonga's podcast. No offense, Tama, but apparently it's out there on Apple Podcasts, all the podcasts. So I did listen to episode 2 today, and Tama talking about his times in the dojo, and even before that, getting turned down by WWE, and Haku helping him get to New Japan and giving him advice, and growing up in the dojo and meeting Fale and all that stuff. So, yeah, it was pretty interesting, and I'm going to kind of have it in the rotation kind of going forward. And so, yeah, interesting podcast.
Speaking of podcasts, I plan to also check that out. A couple other interesting things that I want to bring up on the show that I haven't mentioned. So the podcast of Honor or Strong Honor podcast. What's Ring of Honor's new gimmick? Strong Honor?
I think it's Strong Honor, yeah.
Yeah, their new podcast is surprising. Well, I guess not surprisingly, but it's really good, actually. I listened to like the first 3 episodes. They had Jay Lethal, Jeff Cobb, and Marty Scurll on there, and it's called ROH Strong Podcast. That's what it's called. Really, really, really good. And, you know, a lot of those guys, especially Jeff Cobb and Marty Scurll, being affiliated with New Japan, they kind of peel back some of the, you know, curtain on that a little bit. And so really good insight just to kind of see, you know, and obviously Ring of Honor is, you know, the American partner to New Japan. So they're making a lot of like effort to change things and you know, kind of improve things going on in the future. And they talk very extensively and openly about that sort of stuff on this podcast, which I find refreshing. So I think that one's really good. I also wanted to mention The Revolt when they were on Talk is Jericho, and they talked extensively about New Japan, and we didn't mention on the show how they want to work New Japan.
Yeah, the former Revival FTR. Yeah, they want to work Ring of Honor. They want to work NWA. They want to work all over the place. You know, they want to wrestle the Briscoes. They want to wrestle God.
They mentioned God. They mentioned the Briscoes. They mentioned FinJuice.
Yeah.
So they're like, yeah, we want to, you know, we would love to do New Japan. I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. So pretty interesting stuff. But yeah, if you guys haven't checked that stuff out, you know, definitely check it out after you get done with, you know, listen to us.
Then Viking Fan says, lastly, thoughts on Drew Gulak. I think he'd be a perfect fit in New Japan. So Drew Gulak, his contract recently was up. Apparently the story is he asked for a raise. WWE did not want to give him a raise. So Gulak just walked, and he's a free man now.
I actually heard that they rescinded the offer after he asked for the raise.
Yeah, so that they gave him an offer. He asked for a bigger offer, and so they pulled the original offer, I guess.
Yeah, they like that's a totally different thing. They didn't say take it or leave it. They said, "Oh, you want a raise? How about this? No offer. Get to step in." I'm like, what's wrong with this company, dude? And he was on that like 205 like NXT, like, you know, who knows what he's making, but I'm sure it wasn't like, you know, main roster TV like type of deal. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Drew Gulak a lot. I think he'd be good here. I don't know like what the ceiling is for him in New Japan. I think stylistically he fits, but from a character perspective, I'm not so convinced, honestly.
Great worker. I'm big fan of Drew Gulak. I love his work. Has some really good matches. Like you said, I could see him fitting in stylistically in New Japan. You know, he's had some great matches with Sabre in the past. Those guys would have a great match together. But yeah, from a character-wise, I'm not sure what the character kind of looks like in New Japan.
Well, think about like Jeff Cobb. Really impressive guy. Great talent. He adds a lot, but he's not like a top star in New Japan.
Right.
Because we don't really know what Jeff Cobb's, you know, character is. You know, that's the funny thing is people act like there's no characters in New Japan, and like it's such a character-driven company, right. You know, but people act like it's not. They think everyone's like Inoki and just in black like tights. It's not like that, you know? And I would see Drew Gulak maybe not quite there, but I think that's a good comparison. Like Gulak would be kind of similar to Jeff Cobb. Like he would come in, and be really great, and people be kind of excited, and he'd probably be good, but he'd be like a peripheral guy because I don't know what his character would be. I will say this though, he was really entertaining the last, you know, couple years on WWE, so I think he could he's not as uncharismatic as people act like he is.
Right. And honestly, I think Ring of Honor, would probably be the best landing spot for him, especially with them bringing back the pure title in that pure division.
Yeah, and he could work Japan if he was working Ring of Honor as well. So that's a great idea. I say he should just go back to Evolve and work his way back to NXT, and then maybe someday he can make it back to TV. He's still making the same amount of money that he was making. Doesn't it suck that Evolve is the feeder system to NXT?
Yeah.
Or he could go to Progress, and then maybe if he works really, really hard, he can make it to NXT UK. It's like, sucks.
Yeah, man. Next question here from Reddit user WizFactor. It's apparent that the taping quality of overseas events are far inferior to those on Japanese shores. Is there any technical or legal hurdles that prevent New Japan from improving their taping quality outside their home country?
Is he talking about, like, say, for instance, like the Access shows they used to do, or is he talking about like when they did like this most recent tour?
I don't know. I think maybe just talking about in general. I mean, you can look at some tours that did not have great quality. Obviously, like the Super J Cup shows was not great filming here. The
Super J Cup tour was really bad.
The Fighting Spirit Unleashed tour in the Northeast wasn't the best.
That was better though.
It was better. The Royal Quest, there was a lot of streaming technical issues there. But overall, I think the issue what it comes down to is just money and how much it costs for a certain type of production to get them overseas and to have that production streamed live. Obviously, we've seen with the bigger U.S. shows, they've put the money down and had a better presentation.
No, they haven't.
You don't think some of the bigger, like the Long Beach shows were? I think
none of that was New Japan.
Right, none of that was New Japan, but it was way better than like the Super J Cup type of stuff.
Right, but you said New Japan put the money down to produce better shows. They didn't. Access foot the bill for all of that. That was Access's team. That was right. Access's cameras. So that's the thing. I don't think New Japan has ever actually done a truly competent production in the U.S. And in fact, I think when they did some stuff earlier, Ring of Honor was kind of helping them too.
Right.
And I think now they don't. I also think that they've had help from, like, say, Rev Pro when they ran Royal Quest. I'm pretty sure Rev Pro helped them with that.
I think it was Fight TV that did the production.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing. You brought up a good point. I think the main thing is, like, you look at, say, for instance, WWE, when they go overseas and they travel, they're bringing their production crews, they're bringing their cameras, they own all that stuff. I think it's just a matter of, like, I don't think New Japan brings that stuff. You know, I think that they are outsourcing to someone or somebody every time they do a tour somewhere. And I also think the scope of the production is reflectant on how they view the importance of the show and the size of the venue. So, like, which would make sense because that's how it's been in Japan. You know, when they have a big show, they have big production. When they have a small show, little production. We saw that when Ospreay wrestled Amazing Red. We got, because it was in a small building, we got really shitty production.
Yeah, almost looked like a fan cam.
So bad. So I just think it's like one of those growing pains. They haven't figured it out. In the past, I actually used to complain about the Access TV film crew. I was like, because even though the quality was great, I was like, they don't know how to shoot this shit. Like, why can't they just let New Japan's team do it? Well, I don't even think New Japan brings a film team ever.
Right. Yeah.
To any country. So I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think it's political. I think it's just costly.
Yeah, cost saving. Yeah, definitely.
And also planning. Like, they've shown, times where they're not the most competent when it comes to planning, because it's a difficult thing to do when you're running a tour overseas with all the moving parts. It's just really hard.
Yeah. So next question here from @Madnutter0102. With this year's New Japan Cup being canceled, could they use the same bracket for next year's tournament?
They could, but they probably won't, because who knows? I mean, I don't know what the story was. I don't know what the long-term booking is. It'll be a different time. They're not going to. I would pretty much say no.
Yeah, because I mean, at some point, hopefully, by sometime, hopefully September or some point toward the end of this year, they're going to come back and stories will shift, rivals will shift, and they're going to need to tell different stories by the time March comes around next year.
Here's a worst case scenario, Jeremy. What if they do? Because wrestling doesn't pick up until Anniversary Show next year, and they literally start with the same card.
Oh my gosh.
They run it back with the brackets, and they're just like, hey, we took a year-long break. We back.
Yeah. I hope that's not the case, but
also that would mean no Wrestle Kingdom.
Oh my gosh! Don't even put that into the atmosphere,
bro. I think that's something that they are probably really scared about because that is a huge. I mean, if there's no Dominion this year, and then hypothetically, even if wrestling comes back, I don't think they're gonna do a Tokyo Dome.
Well, it would have to be like 25% occupancy.
Bro, think about that. 25% occupancy. Bro, they literally just in the past couple years got back to where they were running like 40Ks. Remember the years when they were at 25% occupancy? It's like when the company was going out of business. Like, what? That's not good.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to run 4 nights of Wrestle Kingdom to get the kind of revenue that they got for 1 night of Wrestle Kingdom.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Man, it's crazy.
That's a scary idea.
That is scary.
Because the 2 nights that they ran this year are the only thing that's really keeping this company like in a steady position right now financially.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening in January.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it till just like literally now, and I'm like, oh, no Wrestle Kingdom. And I'm not even talking about from a fan perspective. I'm talking business. Like, what will they do?
Right, yeah.
Are 10,000 people going to want to pack into a Tokyo Dome? Do you know how scary that might be with everything that's been happening? I don't know if the public's even ready to do that.
Right, and I doubt, there's not going to be a huge international crowd coming.
Yeah, no travel. The travel will probably not have been picked up by then, so that's a scary proposition.
Yeah. Moving on to Murray Bone. He says been finding himself watching more Takayama matches recently, mainly his match with Chris Hero in Noah and most of his Noah work. What matches from his time in New Japan would you recommend?
I really like the matches with Shinsuke Nakamura. He actually had some good matches with Chono. They had a cage match together. That's good. Him and Kensuke Sasaki, I think their G1 match in like 2004 or 05, I can't remember the year. Takayama has a legit stroke after the match because of how hard they were hitting each other. That's a shoot. Those matches stick out to me as some of the better matches. The Nakamura matches were fantastic. The Kensuke Sasaki matches. Him and Yuji Nagata, I believe, also had good matches. So off the top of my head, those ones kind of stick out. Yeah.
Nice. All right, last set of questions here from Kyle Martin from the Wrestling Squared Circle. First question says, I don't expect you guys will know this, but here goes nothing. Do you guys think they have a PWI or Japanese equivalent to Meltzer in Tokyo covering American wrestling before the internet? It just continues to surprise me when I'm told how popular and legendary some guys were in Japan, like were the Road Warriors, for example, essentially starting from scratch with no reputations and then getting over, or do they have international fame that carried over?
Okay. So I don't have a good answer for that. I mean, my understanding is someone like, say, Fumi Saito, who's been covering wrestling for a very long time, knows a lot about the wrestling industry, including, stuff over here in America. And I would assume with his coverage has covered that stuff. But here's the thing. In Japan, they have wrestling magazines, Weekly Pro, Tokyo Sports, Nikon Sports. There's some other ones that have existed over the years. These magazines cover all of Puroresu, but they also cover the major companies in America as well. And in the 80s, when magazines were more popular, I'm sure, I don't know this as an authority, but I'm sure that they were covering what was going on in the territories. I know this for a fact, too, because guys like Bruiser Brody and Stan Hansen wouldn't do clean jobs in America, because they wouldn't let themselves look weak in matches either, because they didn't want the Japanese press to take photos and then post it in the magazines. So that's how I know. I don't know like all the ins and outs, but like you have to understand that like Japanese wrestling comes from American wrestling. It's heavily influenced stylistically from the NWA. I mean, New Japan and All Japan were both affiliate members of the NWA for years and years and years, and recognized the NWA world title as the main world title. New Japan had a long-standing working relationship with WWF, and the IWE had a long-term standing relationship with the AWA. So North American wrestling has always been heavily covered and known about. And so guys that wrestled over there, like the Funks, like Hansen, like Brody, like Vader, like the Steiners, like the Road Warriors, they all were well known because they were in the magazines and on video and things like that.
Right, and that's why it was such a big deal when they did come over, and it's like, oh my God, like these North American stars are coming to our promotion, and it's a big deal.
Yep. Same thing with Flair, same thing with Harley Race, same thing with Hulk Hogan, all that stuff.
This next question: after completing the final countdown, what's your guys' favorite overall match or wrestler coming out of the tournament finals?
I mean, my favorite overall match, I don't think it's the best match, but it's close. But my favorite overall match, and we're going to review it here, is Kushida and Kyle O'Reilly.
For me, my favorite overall match is 2019 Shingo and Ospreay.
Not surprised. Do you have a favorite overall wrestler coming out of this project?
Let's see. I mean, I've always loved Ospreay and Shingo. I've always liked Prince Devitt, Ricochet, Kushida. For me, like I mentioned earlier, Koji Kanemoto is one of these guys that I didn't really know much about that ended up being one of my favorites kind of coming out, and a guy I definitely kind of want to do some more research on and watch more of his matches just from what I've seen in this tournament.
Yeah, I think that's been like the big revelation for you is like how good Koji Kanemoto was, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much knew how good most of the rest of these guys were.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are just really great. I think Kushida has always been a favorite of mine, and I've seen all these matches, but not having seen them for a few years, being like kind of removed, they've just reinforced how good of a performer Kushida really, really was for me. As far as guys that, like I really, really dug Milano Collection AT a lot, even though he only made the one appearance. That's someone that I kind of like, quote unquote, feel like I discovered in this whole thing that really stands out to me. I feel like it's cheating to say Liger, but like to go back and rewatch Liger is always just so like, I mean, Liger's the man,
Minoru Tanaka is another guy that I really enjoyed throughout this project.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's those would be my favorites. So moving on to his next question, he says, I remember the curiosity about New Japan releasing rare and unseen content a few months back. It just got me wondering now if you guys knew or could guess when New Japan started recording events. I get that there always been a live event business first and foremost, but does the library actually go back to 72?
Yes, it does. So you can actually find the very first event that they ever did in 1972, and it did air live on television. They've had a TV deal with TV Asahi. It was actually originally known as Net TV or NTV originally. They've had a deal with them going back to 1972. I don't think the first year a lot of their events were broadcast or aired, but I've seen a handful of matches from that very first card, including, and now they were clipped, but I've actually watched a pretty long version of the clipped match between the first main event, which is Karl Gotch against Antonio Inoki. Aside from that, I mean, New Japan World has a lot of the footage. I think the earliest footage on World goes back to 1973. They have the fantastic, famous tag team match where it's Seiji Sakaguchi and Antonio Inoki against Luthez and Karl Gotch. And I think that's kind of like one of the seminal moments, because that's the first big main event match that I remember that looks like New Japan. Like the 1972 card, it doesn't have the blue mat. It doesn't have the things that you kind of recognize as New Japan, but like once you see the stuff in 73, they've kind of found their identity already. But yeah, I mean, they've had television going back to 72. They've been recording, all the way back then.
Then he says, in connection to my previous question, are there any historic New Japan events or matches that weren't recorded?
Yes. I mean, I don't have a definitive answer on that, but like what comes to mind, some of their foreign tours that they did, like I know they toured like France back in the day. They did a tour in Russia. They did a tour in Brazil. I've seen the match between Antonio Inoki and Andre the Giant from Brazil. That's actually on New Japan World. It's from Sao Paulo, and it's actually, in my opinion, they had a lot of matches against each other, Andre and Inoki. That's the best match they ever had. It's really, 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 really good. It's one of the best Inoki matches ever. It's actually like one of my top 2 or top 3 Andre matches. It's awesome. But I don't think the rest of the tour was taped. And they actually have a very famous shoot fight between Ivan Gomez and I forget the other guy's name. He was Judica. So, I mean, yeah, there have been famous things that have happened that haven't been taped, but I don't know, like, all the specifics. I just think about, like, the stuff they did overseas. I know a lot of it didn't make tape. I know there's a Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask match. It's, like, the only one that didn't make tape, and it's from, like, the Middle East. New Japan did a tour in the Middle East, and they wrestled each other, and like no one has tape of it.
Shame.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up all the questions for this week. Thank you guys for submitting your questions, and we'll still be taking questions as we move on to our kind of theme shows that we'll be doing. So please keep sending your questions in Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, Discord, wherever you can find us. Send your questions in. And now it is time for the final countdown segment. So a quick recap of Week 5. We talked about 2010 to 2014. So in 2010, we had Prince Devitt over Kota Ibushi. In 2011, Kota Ibushi over Ryusuke Taguchi. 2012, Ryusuke Taguchi over Low-Ki. 2013, Prince Devitt over Alex Shelley. And then in 2014, we had Ricochet over Kushida. So that brings us to 2015. We have the 22nd Best of Super Junior Tournament. Was announced on March 4th of 2015, took place between May 22nd and June 7th. Participants were announced on May 7th. The outside entrants included Barbaro Cavernario from CMLL, Bobby Fish from Ring of Honor, Chase Owens from the NWA, Kyle O'Reilly from Ring of Honor, and the debuting David Finlay Jr., son of Dave Finlay. For the second year in a row, the reigning IWGP Junior Champion, which would be Kenny Omega this time, did not enter the tournament. Instead, the winner of the tournament would challenge for his title at Dominion on July 5th in Osaka Joe Hall. Alex Shelley was supposed to be in the tournament, was forced to pull out of the tournament after his opening match of a foot injury, forcing him to forfeit the rest of his matches. Young boy, tell us the A block and B block participants here.
So in the A block, we had Yohei Komatsu. That's Yo, for those of you who don't know. Gato, Barbaro Cavernario, Jushin Thunder Liger, Chase Owens, Beretta, also known as Trent Beretta, Ryozuki Taguchi, and Kyle O'Reilly. And in the B block, we had Dave Finlay Jr., Alex Shelley, Nick Jackson of the Young Bucks, Tiger Mask 4, Rocky Romero, Mascara Dorada, Bobby Fish, and Kushida.
And this year, we're back to the normal format of where the top guys from each block face each other. None of the the A1, B2 stuff. So top of the A block here, Kyle O'Reilly. Top of the B block, Kushida. They meet here in our finals in Yoyogi National Gymnasium for the Best of Super Junior final in 2015. Young boy, give us some little background on Kyle O'Reilly.
So, Kyle O'Reilly, he made his debut in wrestling in 2005. He's a resident of St. Louis, Missouri. He was born in Delta, British Columbia, Canada. And, he's known for his time with Ring of Honor, as well as other, independent promotions, PWG. But I think the majority of his renown was earned mostly with his tag team with Bobby Fish as Red Dragon, now known as the Undisputed Era. He is a one-time Ring of Honor World Champion, but he's also a three-time ROH World Tag Team Champion. He also had a lot of success in PWG. He was a world champion there. He also won the 2013 Battle of Los Angeles. So we're kind of by 2015, we're kind of getting into the era of the super indies, and so a lot of these guys are kind of making their renowned acclaim in places like PWG and Ring of Honor. Kyle O'Reilly was amongst them. But, he kind of wrestled everywhere. Chikara, Dragon Gate USA. He did stuff with Progress, What Culture Pro Wrestling. I know he started the majority of his career in, the Canadian indies and then kind of worked his way to, the independent scene throughout the 2000s before him and Bobby Fish made their jump to Ring of Honor. Or, I'm sorry, to New Japan.
Yeah. And in his time in Ring of Honor, before he teamed with Bobby Fish, he teamed with Adam Cole as the Future Shock tag team.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Future Shock shocked the system.
Yeah.
Wonder where they got that from.
Yeah.
Also, his feud with once they split up, his feud with Adam Cole, I think they're still some of the best matches of both guys' careers.
Oh yeah, love their feud.
So yeah, and they came to Red Dragon came to New Japan in 2014 and kind of made their presence known right away. And I believe at this point they had already won the junior tag team titles, but they'd win those titles on several occasions, with their time in the company. So they were kind of getting the big push, and you kind of see that reflected here in the point totals because you've got Kyle O'Reilly at the top of the block, but in the B block, his partner Bobby Fish has 10 points. So he's right outside. You almost got an all Red Dragon final for this tournament.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably one of the things they were teasing kind of going into this.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Well, one other thing. So, one thing we forget to mention, Kyle O'Reilly, what he's really known for and famous for is the fact that he's so adept in what people would kind of consider shoot style wrestling. He's a fantastic wrestler all around, but he really has a heavy Muay Thai influence mixed with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he really incorporates that sort of shoot style wrestling into his performances. And I think that's one of the big things that kind of set him apart from a lot of the other guys in the indies circuit at the time.
Yeah, Kyle's a great professional wrestler. So what do you think about this matchup here with him and Kushida?
So I've seen this match many times before. I think in 2015 I had it listed as I had a list of the 10 best matches I saw that year, and this was amongst them, if not near the top 5. I still feel that way. When I watch this match, it is so different from every other Super Junior final before or after. Like, it kind of is its own unique little thing. And I love every aspect of this match. I really do. The one word that comes to mind when I think of this match is like a masterpiece. I think it is a perfect work of art when it comes to wrestling and telling stories. Kushida, also being a former MMA fighter, has a large influence from MMA and from submission grappling and that sort of thing. And then you take a guy like Kushida, and I think that Kushida and Kyle O'Reilly are like kind of made for each other. And I've seen them wrestle many times, but this is their best match they ever had. And you see that like right from the get-go, they're doing like MMA style grappling, but it's not done like we've seen some shoot style stuff during the Inokiism period, and none of it ever was as fluid or as like high level as what these guys are doing. This is much closer to like Fighting Network rings or like high level battle arts, some of that sort of stuff. And they incorporate the shoot style wrestling, but they never completely delve into that. They still stay within the realm of, it kind of almost reminds me of like and Angle, the way that they would incorporate like amateur wrestling to their stories.
Yeah.
Very similar to that. And then once it develops into both of them trying to submit each other, and they both keep attacking each other's left arm, and that becomes like the developing story throughout the match. And you see these guys kind of like not knowing how to beat each other, so they start like doing more high risk things and taking more chances and trying to inflict damage on each other, and they're just back and forth, and there's so many swings of momentum. And while all this is going on, you've got Bobby Fish on the outside just being an incredible vocal coach.
Bobby Fish was freaking cracking me up the whole match. He was so great, calling out stuff, and he starts off, he'd be like, "That's illegal, ref. He was in the
illegal ref.
He was in the ropes. He's in the ropes. Come on, ref." It was so great. It was awesome.
I think this match is like nearly perfect. I have one small criticism at the end, but like I love this match. Like every single moment of it. They talk about like they always say like the things you do in wrestling should make sense. Sometimes people have great matches, but not everything they do makes sense. But like in this match, it's like everything does make sense. It's like a really perfect, logical, hard-hitting. This is the kind of wrestling that I like, though. It's guys doing real wrestling techniques, fighting super hard, big kicks, big strikes, tons of suplexes. Like that's what I like. And every now and again they sprinkle in, the high flying spots, and it's so good. Yeah,
I love this match. And for me, Kyle O'Reilly stood out for me. And like I've seen a lot of Kyle O'Reilly's singles Ring of Honor work, but he's been in NXT for so long now as a strict tag team guy. I kind of forgot how great he is as a singles wrestler. So it's just kind of a breath of fresh air. Just like it's a great reminder of how great Kyle O'Reilly is. And there's just so much stuff in his match that I love that he did. There's just like this butterfly suplex combo thing he does, where like he does like two rolling butterfly lock things into like a face buster.
I love that.
That was awesome. There was one point where he caught a kick from Kushida and turned it into a Regalplex. That transition was amazing.
My favorite moment of the match, and it's been the thing that always stuck out to me, and they've actually copied this in several places after this match occurred, and even this duo, they've done it in their matches several times, but this is the first time I ever saw it was in this match, was Kushida goes up to the top rope and tries to hit a moonsault, and then Kyle O'Reilly's like, he turns around and instead of getting hit with the moonsault, he avoids it and he locks in a freaking triangle choke in midair and almost submits this guy. I love that spot.
I love that spot too, especially when they can hit it clean like these guys hit it, and it's like so seamless.
I never seen it until this match. That was the first time I ever saw it, and so to me it was revolutionary. I was like, "Oh my god!" Um,
And Kyle says his brain buster. He hit the brain buster, and then he transitions right into an armbar after Kushida kicks out at 2.
there was a lot of that, which is another thing I like in wrestling. Like when guys hit a move and then follow. What they were doing a lot in this match, they weren't so much always going for pinfalls, but because they were trying to get submissions, they would do a suplex and then try to roll into an armbar with it, which was like, very, very, very like logical. Like they keep trying to go for the arm. There's one point, and I love this spot. Kushida has him in a straight armbar, and they're on the top rope, and then he jumps out and brings him face down, like almost into a DDT, like an armbar DDT is the best way I could kind of describe it.
Yeah, like the arm breaker move.
Yeah, and the way that Kyle O'Reilly takes it is just really nasty.
Yeah, there's so many great spots, so many great suplex and strikes in this match. There's a spot towards the end here where Kushida, he hits a brain buster on the apron on Kyle O'Reilly. It was just freaking nuts. And then Bobby Fish is like, that's illegal. That's illegal. So that whole spot was awesome.
Well, what I love about that, and that all is great, but what I love is the way that they stay down for almost the full 19 count and they get in at the last second. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've always liked in places outside in WWE, when guys are getting in before the 10 count, like say John Cena specifically comes to mind, they'll stay down and then at 9 they pop up and they slide all the way into the ring, like this burst of energy, which is cool sometimes. But I like the way that some guys do it in like New Japan or like ROH. They'll be at 19 and then they'll slump into the ring and they'll barely roll in.
Yeah, like they barely. Like it's questionable whether they actually.
It's questionable whether they actually were in the ring or not.
Yeah.
And these guys did that at 19, which was awesome. And they're exchanging forearms on their knees, and Kyle O'Reilly's making this ugly, stupid face.
Only a face he could do.
But one thing that was great was like they were throwing strictly elbows almost the entire match. And then finally, like towards the end of it, I don't remember exactly what the setup was, but like Kushida hits Kyle O'Reilly with this big punch right in the throat. And it's so clearly, and it's a knockout punch, and it drops Kyle O'Reilly. And it's so clearly like a punch. But the whole thing was like he couldn't get Kyle O'Reilly gone. Kyle O'Reilly couldn't get him gone, and he had to resort to punching him. And like, because they didn't use punches the whole match, the one time he punched him, it was so impactful and it meant a lot, like, which I love that stuff.
Yeah. And that would go on to become one of Kushida's signatures, that baseball punch that he does.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of like what, Juice does something similar.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, like these guys are trying everything to beat each other. I mean, Kushida, towards the end of the match, he starts doing Alex Shelley moves, a flatliner into the corner, and then the sliced bread, which was Shelley's finisher.
Hit a spiral tap, bro.
Yeah, dude. Again, it was almost like when Low-Key did the Phoenix Splash. Like, I've seen Kushida do high-flying stuff, but I don't think I've ever seen Kushida do a spiral tap. So I was just kind of like, what the hell?
But yeah, after he hits the spiral tap, he gets near fall, and then he ends up getting into the hoverboard lock. And after a battle, they do the part where Kyle O'Reilly almost gets to the ropes, and then Kushida rolls with him, and then finally locks it in, and then he submits, and that's the end of the match. That was the one thing at the end of the match that I think some people could maybe criticize, in my opinion, is in modern times we're kind of used to like the big impactful finish. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Especially when you're talking about a long epic match like this, or when you get to like the point where someone gets a submission, it's the moment where like it's been teased. Now, boom, it's locked in, and there's an impact to the delivery of it. Here, it was kind of like more like a whimper, the way that Kyle went out. But it still worked for me because this was basically a war of attrition. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This came down to like both guys basically being exhausted, and either one of them could have won. It just kind of depended on who got lucky or who capitalized. And in this case, Kushida just happened to be the guy that got the armbar, since they both were doing dueling arm work the entire match. And Kyle Kyle giving up was almost like an act of exhaustion. Like he couldn't muster the strength to actually get out of the move at that point. But I could see how some people might see that finish and think, didn't sit completely with me the way that some of these other finishes does.
Yeah, that's kind of a little bit the boat I was in. Like I was kind of hoping for a little bit more of an impact finish or a little bit more of a kind of a sudden finish. But overall, still an amazing match. I went 4.75. I think you're 5 on it, right?
I'm 5 on this match.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect. The finish doesn't hurt it at all for me because I get the story of what they were doing here, and after 30 minutes at the pace these guys wrestled and everything they did, this is a classic.
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't watched this one yet, go out of your way to watch it. So Kushida would go on to defeat Kenny Omega for the title at Dominion. Then we have some observer notes here, so I think we should go back and forth here since we have a little chunks here.
Sure.
All right, so I'll start with this one. So Dave says, the tournament didn't seem to have the interest levels of those in recent years, with Kota Ibushi moving up to heavyweight, Ricochet not back after winning last year, and Prince Devitt having left for WWE. Most of the matches were good. New Japan really needs to get a really spectacular American to spice things up, particularly with the questions about the future of Alex Shelley. It's a year away, but somebody like ACH, Roderick Strong, or a Matt Sydal may fit in, or perhaps work out a deal with one of the top guys from Noah or Dragon Gate.
The booking was very different. Instead of the usual Gato parody booking, which is fine, but not all the time. He went to use the tournament to push certain guys, in particular O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Mascara Dorada, and who, by the way, if you guys don't know, that is Grand Metalik in the WWE. In addition, the B block was messed up by the Alex Shelley injury in the opening night, forcing him to forfeit the rest of the way.
Kushida beat O'Reilly 30 minutes and 45 seconds with the hoverboard lock Kimura in a classic match that would rank with virtually any Super Juniors final in history. Kushida was booked strong the entire tour, and it felt like he took a step up, taking the mantle as New Japan's top native junior heavyweight from Deguchi, who had been positioned with the top spot since Devitt moved out of the division. For O'Reilly, a regular who was mostly working tag team matches, it felt like a breakthrough match for him. Notable about the match is that Kushida apparently got knocked out midway through the match, and O'Reilly had to basically lead him through as he forgot much of the rest of it. Yet, in watching it, it comes across like a flawless classic. There's still the mentality about not stopping matches for possible concussions in most of the world, where the concussions in sports stories haven't been covered as much.
I've never heard that. You know what's funny? I did notice that. I was watching this with my girlfriend, and I noticed, I was like, did they just switch to Kyle calling the match? And I didn't know why they did that, but I've never noticed anything about Kushida getting knocked out or getting concussed in this match.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like it at all.
Huh, that's maybe Dave's getting worked. It is funny how Dave is mentioning how like there's not as much interest. I'm wondering like if that's just his opinion because he's such a mark or was such a mark for those guys, or if that's like the general consensus. Because like I mean, I look at the tournament list and I'm like, it looks pretty stacked. But then again, I could see what he's talking about. Like most of their top talent that they'd been building in the division kind of left around that time. Yeah. They're sort of rebuilding.
Yeah. And here, once our question about the outside promotion guys, Kyle O'Reilly, a Ring of Honor guy, here being pushed to the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to Best of Super Juniors Finals 2016.
Yes, so this is the 23rd Best of Super Juniors tournament that took place between May 21st and June 7th. The participants were announced on May 3rd. Outside entries this year included Volador Jr. from CMLL, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, Matt Sydal, and Beretta from Ring of Honor, Chase Owens from the NWA, Will Ospreay from Rev Pro, and Ricochet from Dragon Gate and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Matt Jackson and Nick Jackson were originally announced for the tournament, but both were forced to pull out with injuries before the opening day. On May 19th, Matt was replaced with David Finlay Jr., and Nick was replaced with Chase Owens. The tournament became known for a controversial match between Ospreay and Ricochet on May 27th, which received widespread attention in professional wrestling, with some, like William Regal, praising it too, and others like Vader comparing the match to a gymnastics routine.
I remember I was living in New Jersey when that match occurred, and I was getting my driver's license, and literally like Rich called me. It was early in the morning too. It was like 7, 8, I don't know, super early. And Rich called me. I don't know why he was home, but he called me or like FaceTime me. He's like, bro. And he like showed me the screen, and I see like Osprey and like Ricochet like flipping, and he's like, oh my God. And I was like, bro, I'm at the DMV. Like, I can't watch this.
The origins of RLPW.
Oh man. But so let's go through the tournament participants here. So we've in the A block we have Geto, Dave Finlay Jr., Kushida, Rocky Romero, Kyle O'Reilly, Bushi, Matt Seidel, and Ryuzuki Taguchi. And in the B block we had Trent Beretta, Chase Owens, Tiger Mask 4, Jushin Thunder Liger, Volador Jr., Ricochet, Bobby Fish, and Will Ospreay.
So we have Taguchi, top of the A block, Will Ospreay on the top of the B block. That's our final here from the Sendai Sun Plaza. Will Ospreay versus Ryusuke Taguchi.
Very interesting. Will Ospreay ends up with 8 points in the B block, but so did Bobby Fish, so did Ricochet, and so did Volador Jr. So, you know, they hadn't really booked Will Ospreay to be like the top guy of that block. This is kind of that parody booking that Dave kind of mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And then Taguchi on the other end, he ended up with the tie between him and Matt Seidel and won the tiebreaker for 10 points. But then you've got Bushi, O'Reilly, Rocky, and Kushida all with 8 points. So they're like literally all just one match behind him. So this was an extremely parody-based Super Juniors tournament.
Yeah. So give us a little background on Will Ospreay coming into this tournament.
Yes, so this will be the first appearance of Will Ospreay here in the Super Juniors tournament. So, you know, born May 7th, happy belated birthday, I guess. 1993. Will Ospreay is known for his work internationally with, you know, Ring of Honor, PWG, Rev Pro. He started wrestling in 2012 is when he made his debut. And, you know, he started his like early career. You know, he kind of cites the match between Styles, Daniels, and Samoa Joe as being like the match that made him want to become a wrestler. So that kind of influenced him. And he trained at Lucha Britannia's London School of Lucha Libre in Bethnal Green, London. So, you know, he kind of made his start like training in Lucha, but in England. And he started out as a mask character called Dark Britannico. He was the evil twin of Leon Britannico. But he made his way through like the Indies through the early part of his time in England and the UK. And then he made his debut for Progress in 2012. And he worked, you know, Progress and then eventually made his way into the rest of the independent circuit. Had a really famous, well-known tag team called the Swords of Essex. Him and Paul Robinson, and they kind of like were one of the top tag teams at the time. And then eventually made his way into Rev Pro. So like 2012, he gets to Progress. 2013, he gets to Rev Pro. Those at the time were like two of the biggest, and still are two of the biggest UK independent, you know, wrestling companies. And keep in mind, this is happening during the boom in the independent UK scene. So Will Ospreay is kind of like one of those building blocks, you know, along with guys like Pete Dunne, Marty Scurll, Zack Sabre Jr. The list goes on and on, but they were kind of those guys that were there at the early part. So by the time this match comes around, you know, he's kind of already made his name in England, but not so much in Japan. And he got his introduction to Japan via a match that he had in Rev Pro with Kazuchika Okada, where he was impressive enough to Okada and the representatives at New Japan that they decided to bring him into New Japan in, I believe in March of 2016. So he's literally like fresh off of his debut by the time this tournament starts.
Nice. So what do you think about this matchup here?
You know, it's funny. I think that this is somewhat of a divisive match, to be honest with you, because if you go look on Cage Match, it's ranked really high. It's like a 9.5. Yeah, which that would be like, or even I can look, but it's ranked really high there. At the same time, in the same token, I think Dave Meltzer gave it like 4.25 when it occurred. But I remember a lot of talk being that this match really, really, really over-delivered at the time and was kind of like a match of the year candidate. And I kind of don't know if I'd seen this match at the time. I remember watching Will Ospreay's work in 2016. I specifically remember his first match with Kushida at Invasion Attack in 2016, and I remember loving that match. But this match kind of was what I'd call a really good match, but not a great match. It went 22 minutes, which is fine. It's weird because in some other years, 22 minutes would have been a pretty long or decently timed like Super Junior finals. But because of like how we're used to the epic junior style main event, especially over the past couple years that we've reviewed, between last week and starting with this week, this one kind of felt like it went short. Like it started getting really good and then it kind of deflated for me just a little bit. And also, I don't know if this is fair to say, but I feel like Taguchi's the better performer in this match than Ospreay is at this point in their careers. That's just my opinion. I think Ospreay is more dynamic and can do more impressive things in the ring, but Taguchi's the one who knows how to work the big match style in Japan at this point, and it kind of, I notice it a lot when I'm watching this match that he's better at timing, better at reading the crowd, better at getting crowd reactions. He in some aspects of pro wrestling is better than Will Ospreay at that point. Overall, though, I think the match is really good. I mean, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, and one thing we got to know, this was in Taguchi's hometown.
It was in Sendai Plaza, right?
Yeah, so crowd was definitely behind Taguchi here. And to me, like, yes, Taguchi was good, but I think here we really started to see that shift.
But before we move on, though, one thing we got to mention, Ospreay was not over when he got to Japan.
Oh, no, yeah.
Like, Ospreay, the only place I remember him really being over was, like, Korakuen. But, like, it took him a while to get over. When he first got to Japan, they did not fucking know who Will Ospreay was. You know what I mean? Like, he was working Rev Pro and Progress. No one knew this guy. Like, so that's another big thing. Like, and also, it might have been Taguchi's hometown, but I bet you almost anywhere in Japan, Taguchi was going to get, not by the end of the match, but in the beginning, he was going to get cheered because he'd been presented as, like, before Kushida, as the top domestic Japanese junior.
Yeah. What I was going to say here is I feel like this match, we were really starting to see that shift of the more serious Taguchi. We're seeing the more kind of goofy antics Taguchi here in this match. We're seeing a lot of hip attacks, the Bomaye. We're seeing him rub his crotch in Ospreay's face. It's a lot of like the modern day Taguchi stuff that you would see now. We're seeing a lot in this match. We didn't see, he kind of turned it up more towards the end of the match, but throughout the match, there was a lot of him kind of, joking around, kind of doing the gimmick in between working over Ospreay's leg.
That's true. And, that ended up being the main story of the match was the attack on Ospreay's leg. But I felt like you're absolutely right. Like, we saw a goofier side of Taguchi, but also more effort, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, he was doing like hip attacks, but he was doing more athletic hip attacks.
Right.
Like, if that makes sense. Like they weren't as lazy as what we get from him in 2020. Or even back then he was doing lazy stuff like during the Road to shows. But this one, I felt like he was a little bit more motivated. And I think that's what people kind of mean when they mention big match Taguchi. But yeah, so let's talk about the leg injury that Will Ospreay suffers and how that plays out in the story.
Yeah, so Taguchi catches a kick from Ospreay, and then Ospreay flips out of it, but then he lands. Actually, I think was the knee injured before that.
No, he landed.
Yeah, he landed. So yeah, he landed on the knee.
He tweaks it when he lands.
Yeah. So it was there. Yeah, he lands on his knee, tweaks it, and then from there, Taguchi just picks apart the knee. He drop kicks a bad knee, attempts the ankle lock, and from there, the whole match, he's attempting to get the oh my god ankle lock and focusing a lot of the attack on Ospreay's knee.
Yeah, and I think that's something that they told the story well in the match, but that's also something that might be somewhat detrimental to the overall enjoyment of the match, because it's like, okay, you've got Will, and Will's good in a lot of ways, but one of the things Will's not great at this point in time is selling. I think it would, and that was one of those early things that people used to criticize him about, inconsistently selling things, overacting, crazy facials.
Yes, here he's doing that awful screaming crap he used to do where he's like screaming like bloody murder. I'm just like, oh my gosh, shut up. That's what I used to hate about Ospreay so much.
And it's like, okay, if you're gonna do a big Will Ospreay match, and he's still somewhat green, he's the aerial assassin. The one thing that you shouldn't do is cut his legs out from underneath him and work a body part match for the rest of the match, because that's going to result in something that is less entertaining at that point in his career. Nowadays, I would say have at it, go for it all day. You know what I mean?
Right.
But at that point in time, I don't know that was the best story to tell. I think they pulled it off, but it didn't make for a classic.
Yeah, and we did see Ospreay kind of doing, the one-legged springboard, pip cherry-o. He had like a one-legged moonsault, like standing moonsault. He was doing a lot of like one-legged moves with his aerial offense.
Well, part of it was, and I don't know if this plays into it, but I remember at the time there was a lot of criticism for Will Ospreay because everyone was like, he doesn't sell at all. And to be honest with you, in 2015, that kind of was true. Like, he would sell the move, but then he wouldn't sell it at all during the rest of the match. And so that was something he kind of became known for.
Yeah.
So he kind of was like, I'm gonna break this, the reputation I have. So I remember he had a match with Kushida when he first broke in 2016, early at Invasion Attack. And they, obviously it's Kushida, so Kushida's going to work the arm. And so Will ended up doing a bunch of moves with just one arm. And he was doing all these crazy, like, handsprings, but with the one arm. And everyone was like, it's amazing. He can sell. And he's brilliant. He's changing. New Japan is changing him. So I think maybe he was trying to do that, a little bit of that, because he did. I remember, like, Will took it to heart that people were saying he couldn't sell. So he was like, I'm going to do stories where I sell body parts long term. But I was like, no. But with that being said, I still thought these guys had a really, really good match. I thought they had a lot kind of going against them. I mean, Taguchi, at this point, was kind of being perceived as like the elder statesman, and Will Ospreay is kind of like the new guy. I don't think they'd worked together very much prior to this. Totally different styles. And they still managed to have a really great match.
Yeah, I went with the same rating that Dave did. I went 4.25 on this match. Yeah, really good. Just didn't hit that, that higher level, that 4.5, 4.75, 5-star type of level.
Yeah, I agree. I'm 4.25 on this match. How did this match end? Take us to the end of it.
So towards the end here, Taguchi's continuing to apply the ankle lock. Ospreay fights out, but then Taguchi locks it in, traps the legs around the ankle lock. Ospreay rolls out of it. He hits a Spanish fly for a near fall. He goes to the top. Taguchi slaps him, goes up there on top of him. Ospreay slides out, hits the cheeky Nandos. Taguchi falls down. Ospreay goes back on top and hits the 054, that inverted 450 for a near fall, and then immediately hits the Oz Cutter 1-2-3. Will Ospreay wins Best of Super Juniors.
Was it jarring for you to watch a match where the Oz Cutter beat people?
Not that much.
I'm just playing.
I mean, he just recently started doing the Stormbreaker, so I was pretty used to the Oz Cutter still.
I was like, the Oz Cutter, he beat people. Also, his gear, boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
I remember Ospreay had some cool gear around this time, but like, I don't know why, but for this tour, he was wearing that navy blue gear, and it was not good.
Yeah, and just how much smaller he was too.
Oh, he was so much. Yeah, bro. He's putting on so much weight right now. I'm not convinced it's going to be good for him long term. I think where he was last year, weight wise, was perfect, and I think he's going to overdo it. Honestly,
yeah.
Unless he doesn't want to be the aerial assassin anymore.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
Maybe he just wants to be the assassin.
Yeah, so with this win, Will Ospreay becomes the first English winner of the tournament, also became the youngest Best of Super Junior winner in history. He would go on to unsuccessfully challenge Kushida for the title on June 19th at Dominion in Osaka Joe Hall. Got some notes here from Uncle Dave, so let's go back and forth here.
Yep, Will Ospreay becoming the first British wrestler to win the Best Super Juniors tournament by defeating Ryusuke Taguchi on 6-7 at Sun Plaza Hall in Sendai.
Ospreay, dedicating the match to the late Chris Travis, sent a less than subtle message to the critics in a brilliant but very different performance from his much talked about match with Ricochet on 5/27.
See, I told you. I told you that he was getting antsy about the critics. I remember that. The match was far more basic wrestling as Ospreay landed on his feet and in the impact sold his left knee. Like it went out, Ospreay legitimately worked the tournament and did all his high flying on a torn meniscus. Most of the rest of the match was Ospreay selling his knee, doing an amazing job, including clearly favoring it while doing his flying moves, including springboard moves, using only the right leg. It was even noted in commentary that Ospreay had stayed off social media completely under the criticism of the Ricochet match. That match had the weird divisive reaction given that the vast majority of people thought it was among the best matches of the year, and it got positive mainstream recognition internationally, far beyond what even the best Japanese matches get.
This match was excellent. I gave it 4 1/4. The key is he worked a match that showed his versatility in doing a match that would be described as outstanding from a storytelling perspective, while keeping in enough of the athletic elements to where it would fit into the parameters of what a Best of Super Juniors final would be.
Taguchi, who is often criticized for relying on comedy spots, mixed in enough comedy that his usual personality was shown, but worked a mostly serious match in trying to become a 2-time tournament winner. The match had super heat from the start. It was a hot advanced sellout crowd of 2,167 to begin with. Part of it was because it was a final of the Best Super Junior tournament in years. A lot of it also was because Taguchi is from the Sendai area and got the hometown superstar reaction. Everything basic got a reaction, peaking when Taguchi went back a few times to the ankle lock. So, yeah. And I thought this match was excellent, similar to what Dave said, and I think it does show you how special a talent Ospreay is, because even at this point when we're kind of criticizing him, he's still managing to have these fantastic matches. But as much as Dave was praising his selling and everything, I just can't help but compare it to what he would become modern day and just see the differences, because Ospreay doesn't wrestle like that anymore.
Right, yeah. His selling is so much better than it was here. He cut out the whole bloody murder screaming thing, and yeah, he's, like we mentioned earlier, I'd say more well-rounded performer.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to take us to 2017, 24th Best of Super Junior tournament that took place between May 17th and June 3rd. Participants were revealed on May 23rd. In addition to NJPW regulars, the tournament also featured wrestlers from CMLL, Dragon Lee and Voldor Jr., Marty Scurll from Ring of Honor, and independent wrestler ACH. Veteran wrestler Jushin Thunder Liger took part in the 17th Best of Super Junior tournament in a row and stated that 2017 would be his last tournament.
Yes, so in this tournament, in the A block, we had Jushin Thunder Liger getting only 2 points.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I think he beat Taichi, if I remember correctly. Or no. Maybe it was Kanemaru. One of those two. I can't remember. Taka Michinoku, Marty Scurll. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Yeah, it was in the A block. Yeah, he beat Taichi. So we had Liger, Michinoku, Marty Scurll, Taichi, Hiromu Takahashi, Ricochet, Dragon Lee, and Will Ospreay. And then in the B block, we had El Desperado, ACH, Tiger Mask, Volador Jr., Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Ryuzuki Taguchi, Bushi, and Kushida. And with that is like as modern as a tournament can get. You know, we're 3 years apart, and I mean, this is basically their like junior division today, almost.
Yep, and once again, definitely some parity booking here. A lot of the guys very similar point totals, with Taka and Liger kind of being at the bottom of the block there in the A block, but for the most part, B block's pretty even, and the top of the A block's pretty even.
Yep. So we end up with the final here: Will Ospreay and Kushida, A block, B block.
Yep, in the Yoyogi National Gymnasium in Tokyo, Japan. So we talked about Kushida and Ospreay, their background. So let's talk about this matchup here.
I hope they go back to Yoyogi, because the reason they didn't do Yoyogi in the year after this is because they were renovating for the 2020 Summer Olympics. Mm-hmm. And then last year, the reason they didn't go back was because they ran Sumo Hall, which was somewhat successful, but based on what I heard, I remember they were saying they weren't planning to go back there this year. So I'm wondering if they had planned to do Yoyogi or not. I don't know if that was confirmed or anything. But, like, I love this venue. I like it a lot for the Super Junior Finals, and I kind of hope it's the place they go back to.
Yeah, it's a cool venue.
But, yeah, Jeremy, I mean, what are your general thoughts on this match?
I thought this match was great. We're getting, Ospreay a year later. He's improving rapidly. Obviously, he's still not to the present day Ospreay yet, but he's so much better. We have Kushida, who's we've seen already be awesome, and Kushida working that shoot-based submission style, and Ospreay obviously working the aerial style. So the story here of Kushida kind of wanted to ground Ospreay, and then Ospreay wanted to fly.
Yes, that's absolutely true. There also was an interesting thing where, like, Will did a bit of his English grappling that he knows how to do, and that kind of like came out here. Like, he was doing a lot of the World of Sport escape style, like, transitional grappling.
Yeah, stuff
that like Zach is more famous for, but that Will can do. And then in the same token, there was like quite a bit of high flying from Kushida as well. So there was kind of like this sort of like, anything you can do, I can kind of do better a little bit. Like, guys trying to show each other that they can like do what the other guy could do. But for me, what stands out, I think that this match is it went 27, almost 28 minutes, pretty long match. And this is in some ways like a template of what the major main event, like junior style, is today in New Japan. And it's like a match in several parts. Like, the first part is really, really, really good. But it's kind of similar to like what some of the criticisms are of matches of guys like Okada or Tanahashi. It's like they're setting the groundwork for what's to come. And it's, some people would say, inconsequential grappling, like it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking like, oh, it's pretty good. This match is like not as good as I remember it, but it's like pretty decent. And then once we get to like the second third of the match, things just get haywire and go to like a whole new level. And from that point, like we're off to the races. Like this match goes from being not just really good, but like an all-time classic. So much so, by the way, that my girlfriend watched this match, and she actually watched all 5 of these matches, and she liked this match best out of every single match that we reviewed. She said this is her recommendation for the week.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome match, and definitely, if you have not watched this one yet, it's definitely worth watching. Go out of your way to watch this. But yeah, like you mentioned, yeah, that middle part of the match, like the second, third, really definitely pick up. I mean, Ospreay's hitting Sasuke specials, Spanish flies, his Pip Pip Cheerio, corkscrew moonsaults, and then Kushida, a big thing here in this tournament, he debuted the Back to the Future small package driver. So along with the hoverboard lock, he's trying to hit this Back to the Future throughout the match as well.
Yeah, and they Don Callis was on commentary, kind of mentioned that. He's like, a guy like Kushida can, he can beat you with a submission hold. He can beat you with the big move. He can beat you with the aerial move. So he's kind of like hard to prepare for. He's kind of like a complete wrestler at this point. One thing that I just noticed is like Kushida getting so violent in this match and just really stiff shots. And then kind of the same thing from Will Ospreay. The one moment where he put Kushida in the corner for the Chicken Nando's kick, and he just kept kicking him so square in the face. Like, those might be the most violent Chicken Nando's kicks I ever remember seeing. Like,
yeah, those are stiff.
They were really, really. I was like, how did he not break his nose? Like, but then we got the stuff from Kushida that I love, like just a lot of really awesome submission, teases. There was like a triangle choke, arm bars, like omoplatas, tons of suplexes. Ospreay hit an Essex Destroyer at one point that was like really freaking awesome. He hit a 619, a reverse Rana on the apron. Like, these guys just went into like, they went from having like an average match to just working at like a really, really, this match in some ways, the pace of the match kind of reminded me of like Dragon Lee and Will Ospreay from this past year.
Yeah.
Like, this was crazy. And Kushida did some crazy dives to the outside in this match too.
Yeah, his that tope con hilo off the top, which we've kind of seen in a lot of his big matches he did there. Yeah, just some crazy stuff from Kushida. But yeah, that poison Rana.
Oh, go ahead.
So that poison Rana on the apron was crazy. Kushida getting back in at 19 there.
They did a really awesome. So Kushida puts him in a triangle, and then Will's almost out, and then Will turns it into a buckle bomb. That moment was awesome.
Yeah, and leading to
when
that,
they start doing
the lead into that moment was awesome, where Ospreay's going for the Oz Cutter and Kushida traps him in the armbar, which leads into the triangle.
Oh, off the top rope.
Yeah.
Yeah, he goes to hit the Oz Cutter off the top rope, and is that like the Super Oz Cutter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he went for a Super Oz Cutter, and Kushida jumped parallel to him and caught him in an armbar in midair, which was like insane. And then it got violent. They like started hitting each other with Kawada kicks and then forearms, and then Kushida like hit him with the baseball punch, and then Kushida like started doing the Bryan Danielson stomps, like you're gonna get your fucking head kicked in.
Yeah.
And those were nasty. I mean, he did a bunch of those. Like,
yeah, and the crowd started booing.
But that's the stuff I like. I was like, oh, this match is, not only is it like high flying and crazy, but like there's just a ton of reversals, but like it's violent. Very, 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 very violent.
Yeah, then Kushida, once again, he's trying to hit the Back to the Future. Ospreay counters out with the Stun Dog Millionaire, that spin out stunner thing he does. Then he hits the 054 for a near fall. There's a bicycle kick followed by the Chicken Nando's kicks, and that's where he does the several of them. Then he attempts a Super Oz Cutter again. Kushida fights out, hits a Super Back to the Future, then a regular Back to the Future to get the win here.
Just really incredible match. It's funny because I'm at like 4 3/4 on it, And thinking about it, it's like I could go 5. I don't know why I'm not 5. I don't really have – it's a gut feeling. I don't really have a reason why I'm not 5. But, I mean, it's one of the best Super Junior matches of all time.
Yeah.
Or finals, at least.
Yeah, I'm also 4.75 on this match as well. Again, similar. Like, there's just something in the gut. Like, I have the 5-star fear for whatever reason. And, yeah, so 4.75.
But I always loved Kushida and Will Ospreay matches in New Japan. These guys had really fantastic chemistry with each other, and this might be the best match they ever had. So that's really saying something.
Yeah. Then we got the notes here from Uncle Dave. Dave says, with the worldwide boom in quality lightweight wrestlers, this year's Best Super Junior tournament looked to have potential to be the best one ever.
Between the ridiculously loaded A block and a solid B block, the tournament largely lived up to that. Not every match was great, but most were good, and almost all the dream matches lived up to, and some exceeded expectations.
It came down to 24-year-old Will Ospreay to become only the second repeat winner. Tiger Mask won in 04 and 05. And 34-year-old Kushida doing his comeback storyline. Kushida suffered a number of losses, including the loss in 1 minute and 56 seconds to IWGP Junior Champion Hiromu Takahashi on 4-9 at Sakura Genesis show. Then after winning the ROH TV title from Marty Scurll, the simple story was that he developed a new finisher, the small package powerbomb called the Back to the Future. Then he had the Cleveland Cavaliers opening between being down 3-1 in the best of 7, so to speak, before pulling out his block win, then beating A block winner Ospreay, and what might have been the greatest match in the history of the tournament that dates back to 1988.
Yeah, I like how now Dave likes to mention it goes back to 88, but in all those other years, he's like that 84 tournament. Kushida scored the pin at 27 minutes, 59 seconds with the Back to the Future before a sellout crowd of 3,454 fans at the smaller Yoyogi Gym in Tokyo. The match featured great wrestling, tremendous selling, and body part working, and blowaway moves to make it probably one of the top 4 matches so far in this amazing year.
Adding to the match from an atmosphere standpoint is that watching it at ringside, kneeling around the ring were Dragon Lee, Tiger Mask, Ryusuke Taguchi, Ricochet, and Boldor Jr. They kept the heels away, so it had no interference. Jushin Liger was also at ringside during commentary. After Kushida and Ospreay hugged after the match, they presented Kushida with a trophy, and Kushida told all the wrestlers at ringside to get in the ring and thanked them. He then told Liger to get in the ring. Liger wrestled his final Best of Super Juniors match of his career a few days earlier. He was the most over wrestler in every city except on the final night, and then he then addressed the different guys in the tournament, led the crowd in a big wave, and they had confetti celebration and trophy presentation that gave the feeling you just saw something noteworthy, which in fact you just did.
Whether this was the best Super Junior tournament in history is tough to say. In other years, only a few of the matches were taped for television, and many aired edited. In the early and mid-90s, the talent that was in the tournament were unbelievable. There were a higher percentage of great wrestlers in other years, but there were no years with as many off-the-chart matches, and the final was as good or better than any in history. That generation physically pushed the envelope as to what was the standard of the time, but this generation takes it much farther.
There's a scary negative about the lengths of some of these men went to have these kind of matches. Ospreay has had a ridiculous past few weeks with 6 4-star matches, starting with the match of Jay White on the ROH pay-per-view show. It's an unreal pace, but a worrisome pace as well. The problem is setting a standard so high that expectations are set at a certain level. The thing is, if you take the riskiest spots out, you still would have had one of the best matches of the year. Perhaps it wouldn't be as memorable.
Yeah, I mean, this match was really, 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 really crazy. And yeah, I wanted to. I'm glad that we mentioned. I wanted to talk about that, but we could just touch on it. Kushida had been the ace of the junior division, but then after he kind of ran out of challengers, when Hiromu returned and kind of knocked him off of the pedestal, and then when they had the return match and he beat him in 1:56, he was kind of on a losing streak. He was on the downside, and they were, he had to have a redemption story arc. And that was kind of the culmination of this tournament. And, he went 3 losses, 3-1 in the first 4 matches at the tournament. We should say 1-3 actually. So he had 1 win, 3 losses. He was almost out of the tournament right away. Very similar to the Naito booking. or the Jay White booking in the G1 this past year. And yeah, it was just a really, really, really good story, really well booked. And, both guys kind of had their own angle. Ospreay, sort of trying to take the mantle as the top junior, also trying to be a repeat winner, kind of make history. And then you got Kushida trying to be like, no, I'm not done. Like,
yeah. And I love the fact that this whole storyline, he even kind of quote unquote went on an excursion, went to Ring of Honor, did some dates there, won the TV title, to kind of help, pick back some confidence and momentum. And he was the TV champion in this tournament.
Yeah. And I think, if I remember correctly, I don't think you have it here, but I think he did go on to beat Hiromu for the title at Dominion that year.
Yeah.
Off of this. So
nice little story here.
Yeah, and that would be Kushida's final appearance in the Super Juniors tournament.
No, he was in 2018.
Kushida?
Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was. He was in the B block.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant the finals.
Oh, okay.
My bad. That was his finals. That was his finals appearance.
Gotcha. Okay.
So let's talk about, since we're on the note, let's talk about 2018.
Yeah, and this would be the first tournament that we reviewed here on this show. Keeping It Strong Style, we started November of 2017. So this Special Super Juniors was the first one that we reviewed in full, watch every single match. So if you want to kind of go back in the archives and listen to us review all the matches of that tournament, you can do that and kind of get our thoughts on the whole thing. So this is the 25th tournament here that started on May 18th and ended on June 4th. Participants were revealed on May 7th. In addition to the regular New Japan regulars, we had from CMLL, Dragon Lee, from Ring of Honor, Marty Scurll, Flip Gordon, and Chris Sabin, and then independent wrestler ACH.
Yes. And along with that, so in the tournament, the actual blocks, so in the A block, we had Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Yo, Tiger Mask, Flip Gordon, Bushi, ACH, Will Ospreay, and Taiji Ishimori. And then in the B block, we had Sho, Ryosuke Taguchi, El Desperado, Dragon Lee, Chris Sabin, Marty Scurll, Kushida, and Hiromu Takahashi.
So it leads us to our finals in Korakuen Hall, Hiromu Takahashi versus Taiji Ishimori. Give us some background on Taiji and Hiromu.
Perfect. So Taiji Ishimori, he is actually a longtime veteran of wrestling. Right now he's currently 37 years old. He started in 2002, trained by Tamon Honda and Ultimo Dragon. And he spent the majority of his career, about a 12-year stint in Pro Wrestling Noah. That's where he became one of the most decorated juniors in that promotion's history. He held the GHC Junior Heavyweight title 3 times. He also set the record as the longest reign with that championship at 405 days. He also held the Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles a record 6 times and won the promotion's Global Junior Heavyweight Tag League a record 4 times. Aside from that, he started his career in Toryumon in 2002. He wrestled there for about 2 years. He actually had a short stint in New Japan Pro Wrestling that people don't really mention or talk about, but he was with the company making appearances in 04 and 05. He was in their Young Lions Prospect tournament in 04. He also teamed up with Tanahashi for a one-night U30, which was under 30 tag team tournament in 2004 as well. So, and he also, he also did a Super Junior tournament around that same time period as well. He didn't place in the finals, but yeah, he also had dates in All Japan in 05-06. So, he started Toryumon, worked New Japan, worked All Japan, and then finally made his home in Pro Wrestling Noah. And that's where he got all those different accolades that we kind of mentioned. His time in Impact from 2017 to 2018 is also very notable. He won the X Division title there, and everyone, that's where people in the States kind of first got familiar with him. But there was a point where he was with Noah and he told them that he was going to explore his options working in America. And then it was kind of controversial because then very shortly after that, his other options ended up being working New Japan.
Finesse.
But he was brought in 2018 in April as a member of the Bullet Club. He was presented as the return of Bone Soldier. And then it was revealed at Wrestling Dontaku on May 4th that he was the new Bone Soldier. And he attacked the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion Will Ospreay at that same time, and then became a participant in this tournament. So when Ishimori came into this tournament, he was pretty much a new star with almost no matches during that run prior to this tournament.
Yeah, I remember we got weeks of vignettes. Bone Soldier is returning. And led to that big moment you mentioned where he got revealed and attacked Ospreay.
Yep. And then on the flip side of things, we have Hiromu Takahashi, who's currently 30. He made his wrestling debut in 2010. He's also wrestled in Mexico under the name Kamitachi. So he made his debut. He's actually a young lion and dojo boy. Started with New Japan on August 28th, 2010. Worked as a young lion for over 3 years, so quite a lengthy run as a young lion. In January 2014, he was renamed Kamitachi and was sent to CMLL to wrestle in Mexico for his excursion. And while he was there in 2016, he won his first wrestling title, the CMLL World Lightweight Championship. That's also where he had a very lengthy and famous feud with Dragon Lee of CMLL, and the two of them had a long series of matches that got international acclaim, including title matches, hair matches, and mask matches, where he lost he ended up losing all three of those things: his title, his mask, and his hair to Dragon Lee during the feud in Mexico. Eventually, he ended up working in Ring of Honor until the fall of 2016, and that's when he came back to New Japan in November of 2016. They started showing vignettes for the ticking time bomb that the ticking time bomb was coming, and people weren't really sure who it was, and it ended up being Hiromu Takahashi. Yep, and he made that debut. Let me take a look here. Yeah, in August of 2016 is when the cryptic videos started showing up. And then at Power Struggle on November 5th, 2016, he revealed himself as the Ticking Time Bomb, coming back under his real name, and came out to challenge Kushida for the IWGP Heavyweight title in a match at Wrestle Kingdom in the Tokyo Dome. From that point forward, Hiromu would go on to not only win the title, but also be established as a member of Los Ingobernables de Japón and kind of be like the junior ace of that faction, and really, really gain a lot of popularity and become a major star for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Nice. So, was this match as great as you remember it being?
I don't know if you remember this, but I've never thought this match was as great as everyone else thought this match was.
Now that you say that, I'm remembering back now. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still feel the same way. I don't think this match is as good as everyone thinks it is, but I don't want to besmirch it or be that contrarian guy or that negative voice. I think this match is fantastic. But what did Dave rate this? Like 5 and 5.5, 5 and a quarter,
5.5,
5.5. Bro, this match is not 5.5. It's really, but I do remember this won our junior match of the year that year, which I didn't think it was at the time, but I still think it's a fantastic match. Yes.
Yeah, it was great. I think it was the first time I rewatched this match since we watched it in real time and reviewed it in 2018. Yeah, it was an awesome match, and a little bit of a different start here with these guys kind of brawling out into the crowd and all up into the Korakuen crowd, and Hiromu hitting that John Woo drop kick on the crowd there, and then working their way back into the ring.
Yeah, Yeah, both of these guys do some really incredible work here. The brawling to the outside really stands out, as that sort of thing did happen quite a bit in junior matches during the tournaments, but you didn't really see a lot of that during the finals, you know? And so for them to kind of go up into the Korakuen crowd, and just the crazy stuff that Hiromu did, like that John Woo drop kick you mentioned. But not only that, at one point he teased that he was going to powerbomb Ishimori onto the
down the steps,
down the concrete steps, and Ishimori reverses that into a Frankensteiner of sorts, and Hiromu tumbles all the way down every single one of those steel steps down to the guardrails at the bottom, which is a pretty crazy spot. Yeah, these guys took a lot of risks and a lot of like chances. It's a dangerous match. One thing that really stands out to me is Ishimori. I think he still is good, but he has not been put in the limelight in recent years the way he was then. So I can't say he's not as good now, but man, he was good. Like
he was on his A game in this tournament.
In this tournament and in this match, he was on his A game, and he's moving so fast. Like, not only that, but like a lot of, because he kind of was debuting a lot of new offense, because he previously had worked primarily as a babyface, from what I understand. Mm-hmm. And so this was like him working as a heel, trying to like get heat and, you know, get the crowd to hate him and get the other guy over. And, you know, we've always kind of praised him for that, like the fact that he's able to work a dynamic style but still be despicable and, you know, hold back just enough to kind of like get heat on him, which is kind of a tough balancing act, but he did it really well in this match.
Yeah, he did a great job. Hiromu hit that sunset bomb to the outside, which got us a near count out.
They did that one pretty safe, because we've seen it in the past where Hiromu is literally flipped over and like dropped dudes like full force off that. But here, they did the kind of delay where Ishimori held onto the ropes and then they brought him down, which I think is the safest way to do that. I don't think they should do it the other way, where the guy just takes the move, you know?
Right, yeah. This way, Ishimori had time to kind of prepare himself for the bump. And in the story of that, it was like, all right, he's trying so hard to hold. He knows it's coming, so he's trying so hard to block it, but the momentum and his speed just sends him down.
Yeah. Another thing that really stands out is the submission game of both of these guys was really highlighted. So during this tournament, Hiromu had debuted his new finishing hold, the D, which is a triangle choke. Yeah.
I love the commentary. Like Saban's like, he calls it D. Kevin Kelly's like, D? He's like, yes. Saban's like, yes, I should know. He put me in it last night.
Yeah. So, but then, Ishimori actually, even though Hiromu had a lot of moments where he teased, the D or whatever, to me, it was Ishimori who really stood out with the sustained attack on the shoulder and the arm of Hiromu. He kept going for the yes lock and different omoplata, cross faces, and Hiromu like being in a lot of jeopardy many times and just barely getting to the ropes on many of those occasions. And the facials of Ishimori when he's applying these holds, they really got the crowd believing at certain points that Hiromu might be done, which was pretty awesome. So yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, I remember watching this match back then thinking, oh, it's a lock that Taiji's winning. Like, just came in, new top heel, winning the block. Like, he's going to win this thing, and it's going to be him and Ospreay at Dominion.
Well, yeah, not only that, but he had beaten Will Ospreay on the first night of the tournament.
Yeah.
So he had a claim for the title, and yeah, that just seemed to make sense. Like, they hyped him up so much. He beat Will Ospreay. Like, that just kind of seemed like the way they were going with things at the time. But we were completely wrong. towards the end of this match too, aside from some of the big moves that happened, there were some crazy strike exchanges and crazy lariats. There's one lariat in particular where Hiromu just like fucking kills Taiji Ishimori.
Yeah. Flip that man inside out.
Yeah.
And,
so yeah, this match is awesome.
Ishimori's like throwing a bunch of knees also. Yeah. And then there was the crazy spot towards the end where Hiromu hits this like modified J Driller, Tiger Driver, whatever you want to call it thing.
I don't know what that move is because the placement of the arms is not like a butterfly. It's not a butterfly because he's not clasping his hands together under the arms like a butterfly lock. Like he reaches all the way down to like where the neck is. So he like butterflies the arms, but then goes down to the neck and he's holding him by his neck. Like it's weird looking. And yeah, and he drops this dude on his dome, dude.
Dude, and I forgot about this spot. Like this literally popped me again because I forgot this spot happened. He dropped that man Taiji right in his head.
Now, one thing I will say is this. At 34 minutes, this is one of the longest matches we've reviewed, but it didn't feel like 34 minutes at all. It actually, in some ways, felt shorter than the other couple matches we just reviewed for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And when I look at the time, it is kind of hard to believe that it's a 34-minute match because it doesn't feel like it, really.
Yeah, I think part of it, I think that the outside brawling helped it feel a little bit shorter. Because it almost felt like that beginning part of the match, like the match hadn't really started yet because they were brawling
That's true.
In the crowd. And then once they finally got back in the ring, it's like, okay, here we go. So
That's true. Absolutely. You notice that we kind of, in some years, have kind of gotten away with these finals where the competitors that were in the tournament were, not on the outside. But for the most part, to some degree, in most years, there were people on the outside who were involved in the tournament, whether it was all the competitors or maybe a select few. But this is one of the first years where there's no one from the tournament on the outside at all.
Yeah.
And that would also remain true for the 2019. So I'm wondering if that's something that they're just going to be doing going forward. Like, the tournament participants just they're not going to be out there,
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. But yeah, Hiromu gets the win here. Corner Death Valley driver and the time bomb for the win.
Yeah, and you also have to preface it like the series of moves there is like pretty incredible. Like, Ishimori goes for a 450. Hiromu gets the knees up. He hits a Hurricane Rana into the D. Then he hits the J Driller. Then he locks in another D. And then only after Ishimori gets to the ropes does he do the Death Valley driver into the corner and then the time bomb. So it's like it's a lot of like offense back to back to back to back to back.
Yeah, it's like that super finisher combo kind of thing.
Yeah. He capitalized on a mistake Ishimori made and then put him away with a nonstop onslaught of offense. It was interesting because, on the one hand, Ishimori was sort of like a unknown. But at the same time, anytime someone faces Hiromu Takahashi for the first time, he is an unknown because he's so crazy. You don't know what he's going to do. And he's a hard guy to prepare for. And I think that was somewhat kind of the story here. It was like, not only was this the first time that both of these guys had made it to the Super Junior finals, but they'd never really wrestled each other. Mm-hmm. And, they didn't really know what to expect from one another. So it was like a kind of a mystery for everyone involved, which was kind of refreshing. And the match is great.
And I think too, what was interesting, with this tournament, they spent a lot of time kind of building up the D triangle choke, and he got a lot of wins in the tournament with the D. But here he ends up winning with the time bomb. So it's kind of like a fake out. It's like, oh, you think he's going to win with the D, but he still wins with the time bomb here.
Yeah, and he did get some wins in the tournament with the D. I remember him specifically beating Marty Scurll with it as well. He got some
Saban.
Yeah, he got some big wins. I don't think that Taiji Ishimori ever hit the bloody cross?
No,
'Cause I don't think he did.
He did not. No.
So that's another thing, was they protected his finish in the midst of all this, and yeah, I think this match is great. I still think it's really, really fantastic. I went 4 3/4 on it. I don't know what I went the first time. I think I was like 4.5, maybe 4 3/4, something like that. But yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I went the full 5 here for me. And so this would become the longest Best of Super Junior match in history, breaking the previous record in 2015. And it was the first time since 2011 that did not feature a Gaijin wrestler in the finals. The final match, like we mentioned earlier, was given 5.5 stars by David Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter.
We could have a debate all day about Observer ratings, but let me just say this. One definitive statement. This match is not better than every single 5-star rated match in the entire history of wrestling. It's just not. And it's a really great match, but it's just, come on. That's ludicrous. This was the match when I was like, this whole star rating, overrating stuff, he broke the scale's broke. It don't work no more.
So speaking, Uncle Dave got some notes here. He says Takahashi and Ishimori had what could be argued was this year's best match and definitely the greatest final in the long history of Best of Super Juniors tournament on 6-4 Korakuen Hall.
This is 2018.
Yeah.
He said that this could be argued as the year's best match. Okada and Omega happened that year. What the fuck is he talking about? Anyways, after high-risk moves, twists and turns, Ishimori surviving the triangle that Takahashi had used as his go-to move in the tournament, Takahashi got the pin in 34 minutes and 9 seconds with the time bomb.
The finals in recent years have been held at Yoyogi Gym, but that's closed for earthquake renovation prior to the 2020 Olympics. Korakuen Hall, which sold out with 1,740 paid, was far too small for such an event.
From a drawing power standpoint, the tournament was a success in all but a few nights. All 5 Korakuen Hall events sold out, even though Tanahashi, Okada, and Omega didn't work any events in the tour until the last night.
So yeah, very successful tour there. Great main event. Hiromu would go on to face Ospreay, to defeat Ospreay at Dominion and get the title back.
Great. Let's talk about the final match of the final countdown, the 2019 Super Junior Finals.
Yes, so the 26th Best of Super Juniors here started on May 13th of last year to June 5th, with the finals taking place at Ryogoku. The participants were revealed on April 23rd, and outsiders from CMLL, we had Dragon Lee, Teton from Ring of Honor, Marty Scurll, Gresham, and Bandito. This was the first edition to have 20 wrestlers entering the tournament. Before the tournament, El Desperado had to pull out due to injury and was replaced by Doki. Flip Gordon also had to pull out due to visa issues, being replaced by Young Lion Ren Narita. Takamichi Noku forfeited his final 3 matches due to a leg injury. The 2019 edition included a record 20 participants, with Shingo Takagi winning all of his matches in the A block, therefore becoming the first person to win 9 matches within the same block and setting a record for most points scored in the tournament with 18 after the inaugural 1988 edition, which used a different point system than the previous record of the current format, which was held by Prince Devitt, who won all 8 of his matches in 2013 and scored 16 points. So tell us the A and B block participants here.
So in A block, we had Takamichi Noku, Tiger Mask, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Teton, Jonathan Gresham, Marty Scurll, Sho, Dragon Lee, Taiji Ishimori, and Shingo Takagi. And in the B block, we had Ren Narita, Doki, Rocky Romero, Robbie Eagles, Bandito, Yo, Bushi, El Phantasmo, Ryuzuki Taguchi, and Will Ospreay.
Yeah, nice little stack lineup here. So, obviously, we've talked about this match several times in the past here on this show. Shingo and Will Ospreay here. Shingo winning the A block, Will Ospreay winning the B block. And we get our final of Shingo and Will Ospreay in Ryogoku. So, give us some background on Shingo.
Yes, so Shingo Takagi. His current age is 37 years old. Longtime pro. He made his debut in October of 2004. Trained at the Dragon Gate Dojo as well as by Animal Hamaguchi. Basically, Shingo was known for his work primarily with the company Dragon Gate, which is where he competed from the moment he debuted all the way up until 2018. He was known as the promotion's top heel for many years. He's one of the most decorated wrestlers in the company. He won the Open the Dream Gate Championship, which is their top title. He won that 4 times. Also, leader of the villainous Berserk stable through many incarnations. Had a very long rivalry with BXB Hulk over there. And they main evented a ton of Dragon Gate events, made lots of money. And aside from that, Shingo also is kind of known here in the States for a period of time. During his career, he was like from around 2007 to 2008, 2006 to 2008. He kind of did like a foreign excursion or like talent exchange. He was working in companies like Ring of Honor, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Full Impact Pro, Dragon Gate USA, WXW. So that was like the one time in his career where he kind of like got a lot of outside exposure and people kind of remember him for that. But the majority of his career was spent primarily running things over in Dragon Gate. So, he was sort of like the monster over there because a lot of that's a high speed junior promotion. So, as far as size goes, like Shingo was always one of the biggest guys over there. He did have a short run before he joined New Japan where he left Dragon Gate and he kind of worked. I know he was in Bola with PWG prior to joining New Japan. He also was in like the WXW 16 Golden Carat tournament. He also worked the All Japan Champions Carnival just prior to joining New Japan. So like in 2017, he did some of that. But in October of 2018, he was revealed at King of Pro Wrestling as the surprise debuting 6th member of Los Ingobernables de Japón, and he was declared as being a junior heavyweight, even though he's kind of on the border when it came to size. And from that point forward, leading into this tournament, he went on a lengthy undefeated streak that would lead him into this tournament.
Yes, and that brings us to this match here. I've watched this match several times since the first time we reviewed it. It was our Keeping It Strong Style match of the year. It was the junior match of the year. Ospreay was Wrestler of the Year, Junior of the Year. Several publications had this added as its match of the year. One of my favorite matches that I've watched since doing Keeping It Strong Style. And yeah, this thing was as great as it was the very first time I watched it.
Yes, so there's a lot of things we can talk about with this match. I think most importantly, the story leading into it and the build. A couple things. Well, they're in Ryogoku for the first time since the 90s when Liger was on top. So that's a huge deal from a business perspective. The largest tournament they've ever done. And then the story they told is just really fantastic. This is quite arguably maybe the greatest Super Junior tournament of all time when it came to match quality. I think it might slightly be better than 2018. That's how good it is. But you got Shingo in the A block, and he goes undefeated. He beats every single competitor. It's a who's who of the talent in that division. And keep in mind, Shingo had like literally almost no singles matches at all in his time in New Japan prior to this tournament. So, this was his introduction to the junior division, and he ran roughshod over everybody, including, rivals like Sho, the champion Dragon Lee, Taiji Ishimori, who was a finalist the year prior. So, I mean, he just like destroyed guys. And then on the other end of things, you got Will Ospreay, who had spent the majority of the year wrestling in the never openweight division. And this was kind of his return to the junior heavyweights. And he had the most match length as far as ring time goes. So he had a lot of wear and tear in his body going into this match, and he also put on a lot of weight because he was competing with heavyweights prior to this tournament. And he just had an outstanding tournament, giving, almost every night each guy in the tournament their best match of the tournament. So you kind of had a dream match where you've got two top talents, Shingo and Will. They've never wrestled one another. You're doing it in Sumo Hall. You're doing it with this incredible build. And, you've got Shingo, who is undefeated, and then Will, who's trying to slay the dragon and reclaim his spot at the top of the juniors. So, I mean, the build is, quite honestly, I think it's the best build of any junior tournament. After reviewing all of them, I think this is the best build.
Yeah, and there's also another little Bullet Club fake out like the year previous where, obviously 2018 we had Taiji Shimori debut, attack Ospreay, beat Ospreay. We think he's getting a big, the big win. And then here we had El Phantasmo making his debut before the tournament, beating Ospreay in that tag match. He beats Ospreay in this tournament, and you think Phantasmo is going to get the big run to the finals, but it would not be so.
Yeah. I love this match. I've got it ranked probably just as high as you do, but I've always said this. Last year, it was amongst my top 3 matches of the year, but this wasn't my match of the year, personally, even though I recognize that universally it's probably the match of the year for New Japan and for all of wrestling. That being said, there's a lot to dig into with this match. A lot of talking points as far as the action and everything. And every time I ever try to review it, because we've watched it a few times, we've talked about it a few times in the show, and I've always been like, man, I don't ever feel like I do a good enough job reviewing it. And then I realized why. After watching all these other junior style matches over the years and then comparing it to this one, it's because the work rate in this match is way higher than any other match that we've reviewed. And I was like, it dawned on me, this is a Dragon Gate match. That's what this is. It's at a higher level than most Dragon Gate matches in general. The pace is so freaking fast.
Yeah, I had a hard time keeping up with the notes on this one. I paused several times and went back.
Yeah, and I never picked up on that before until now. I just remember being blown away watching it at how much was happening. But once I've kind of got it in perspective and I realized the difference between what happened in this match, for me, the things that stood out were always there's big moments, the big moments like Shingo's dive, or Shingo hitting the Made in Japan, or Will Ospreay, hitting an OsCutter, the Super Liger Bomb, all that sort of stuff. Those kind of stick out. But what I've always missed is the little things, which aren't little things at all. It's big move, big move, big move, big move. They are wrestling at a freaking really, really high, fast pace. And they do it for 33 minutes. It's really, really, really crazy. And I'm like, oh, this is a top style level Dragon Gate match. That's why this match is and here's the thing. I've never really been a big fan of Dragon Gate. I've always liked it, but always thought they worked too fast because I can't keep up with it. I'm like, but this is the best version of that because these guys are masters at this point. Yeah, I mean, you can take us through the stuff that stands out to you, but undoubtedly after rewatching this is the best Super Junior final of all time.
Yeah, I mean, so many amazing moves, and obviously the big story of Ospreay as the underdog and trying to slay this beast, and they just both had phenomenal offense here. The chops, the lariats, the kicks, the strikes. There was one spot where Ospreay, Shingo's bent over. Ospreay does the 630 on his back when he's bent over, and falls up with a top rope shooting star. You got Ospreay going for his new finisher, the Stormbreaker, several times, and Shingo fighting out.
He tried to do it off the top rope at one point.
Yeah, he did. That was crazy.
Which makes me think one day he might do it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Who's crazy enough to take that?
Me.
Yeah, the Made in Japan, which I remember the first time because I was on vacation watching this match on the cruise, and I remember seeing that the first time. I thought the Made in Japan was Last of the Dragon, and so I like marked out because Ospreay kicks out. I was like, oh my god, he kicked out of his finish, but realizing it was actually Made in Japan and not Last of the Dragon.
Well, Kevin Kelly did the same thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't know either.
Yeah, Chris Charlton was like, actually, that's, the Made in Japan.
Actually.
Well, actually. Meltzer explained him.
Yeah.
And then the two pumping bombers after that Made in Japan. Oh, my gosh. He freaking killed Will with that.
Yeah.
And then Will fights out Last of the Dragon for Poison Rana, which was great. And then there's an iconic spot where they're both on their knees and they have the headbutt exchange.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, you're going through it, and like you're just going through a couple minutes of towards the end, and like so much stuff had happened prior to this. It's like, how do you keep up with all this? It's crazy.
Yeah. Ospreay catches a kick, hits a Spanish fly, does his super combo here where he does the hook kick, hidden blade, super Oz cutter, and the Stormbreaker to get the win here.
Yeah, that super combo is incredible. And, keep in mind, the whole thing here is a lot of people thought Shingo was winning. So the fact that, like, they kept Shingo undefeated for that, that whole time period, it was like 90 matches or something, and then beats everyone in the tournament. And you think, like, oh, my God, this guy's going to go undefeated. He's going to beat Will Ospreay, and he's going to go on and murk everybody in the juniors and like just run. He's gonna run this shit like he did when he was in Dragon Gate. And Will Ospreay, little do we know that the whole reason that they're building Shingo up was to give Will the rub, because that's exactly what it was for. It was to set up Will because Will was already like a star, quote unquote, and he was kind of made, of course. But this was the first, like, of course, when he beat Kota Ibushi at Wrestle Kingdom that year, like, I took him seriously, but I just kind of thought it was like a whatever. But when he beat Shingo in the Super Juniors, I was like, oh, they're gonna make him a top guy in this company for real, for real. This is the match that like showed me like, oh, they're going with Will as a top star in this company, and that was the reason that they built Shingo up, was to elevate Will, and it elevated Shingo too, but like it didn't hurt anybody. But like coming out of this match, like Will just looked like a world beater, and it's like, oh, he's the Dragon Slayer, like he like this guy's gonna fuck people up, like it's incredible.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like you mentioned, incredible build, incredible storytelling. A great way to build up a credible threat in Shingo. Great way to build up a star in Will Ospreay. And there were so many mini stories within this tournament as well that led to this final. Like everything about this tournament and this final was just phenomenally done.
Anything? Because we've recorded this a few times. Anything that like stuck out to you that you didn't catch the first time?
Not really. I feel like, yeah, everything was like I remembered it. I had nothing really stood out differently to me. I feel like I remembered all these big spots here.
For some reason, I didn't remember Shingo doing the senton dive over the top rope to the outside.
Where he hits his knee on the guardrail.
Yeah, he gets stuck in the guardrail. Like I did not remember that. Like that, I popped for that. Also, the Oz cutter on the apron where they do the Ospreay gets in at 17, Shingo gets in at 19. Like I did not remember that. Like I was like, oh, like yeah, this match. I mean, you still can't convince me it's better than Ibushi and and Jay White as the match of the year last year. But but this match is just really, really, really incredible. I'm the full 5 on this.
Yeah, me too. Now we would know that Ospreay would go on to defeat Dragon Lee for the title at Dominion and kind of go on a little junior title run there till Wrestle Kingdom.
Yep. So we've got some notes here from Dave. It says this year's Best Super Juniors tournament, besides generally considered the greatest ever, was built from the start on the idea of Ospreay and Shingo Takagi meeting in the finals.
Takagi was pushed as an unbeatable, not having lost a fall in New Japan since signing in October. He went 9-0, beating Taiji Ishimori in the deciding match on 5/31 in Ehime.
Ospreay started strong while Takagi won and was kept strong. Ospreay had incredible matches. It didn't matter who, but he lost to El Fantasmo, which was tough because that meant Fantasmo had to lose twice because of the tiebreaker. Then he lost to Robbie Eagles, meaning Fantasmo would have to lose 3 times. Even though Takagi is Japanese, the story of the tournament was about Ospreay as the come-from-behind guy trying to be the Dragon Slayer. Takagi was positioned as the unbeatable Dragon.
To say they had a great match does us a disservice. Ospreay is just a different level, and his promos in their own way are completely compelling.
Ospreay's winning performance was in many ways similar to Omega's, becoming the first foreigner to win the G1 in 2016. Omega had 2 fantastic matches and wins over Tetsuya Naito and Hiroki Goto within 24 hours to become the surprise winner, but it was his promo after the match that established him as a superstar in Japan, even before the first Okada match. This was the night that set the stage.
Similarly, while you can talk all superlatives about Ospreay's tournament and even more about the final match, which I would call the best junior heavyweight match I've ever seen and one of the best matches in any division, but it was the promos, the one after beating Taguchi and the other 2 after beating Takagi, that drove this one home. As great as Jay White is, and he is, and will be positioned as a top guy bearing injury, 2 straight wins over Tanahashi drives that home. Ospreay blew past him at Sumo Hall. As much of a breakup performance as Jon Moxley had, Ospreay left him in the dust.
All year, it's been the battle of Ospreay over Kento Miyahara as the best in the world. That battle's clearly over. Everyone's fighting for second. Yeah, and I would like to say, the one thing that stands out here, we mentioned earlier, like, how great earlier versions of Will Ospreay were, but, like, once you get to 2019 and you see like him as a complete competitor against, one of the best in the world in Shingo, it's just so amazing. Like how high of a level Will Ospreay has attained when it comes to pro wrestling. Even though he won this tournament against Taguchi, back in 2016, that might have established him, but it did not like make him. This match is like the match that like made him. It was like, oh, Will's here, and he's like, and he'd already been champion, previous to this. He was the champion the year before. Like he'd accomplished a lot, but like beating Shingo is like right now probably like the career highlight of Will Ospreay, I'd say.
Definitely agree with you there. So that wraps up the final countdown. Before we close this segment down, we have our top 5 MVPs, our MVWs, most valuable wrestlers, and then we have our top 10 matches of the tournament, where we took the average star ratings of Young Boy and I to get one top 10 list. So first, let's talk about the top MVPs, and so we can kind of go back and forth here. So at number 5, we have El Samurai.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his performances in the matches he had. He had a very solid match with Benoit. He had, aside from that, a classic with Liger, and then an all-time match with Koji Kanemoto in 1997. When we look at these MVPs, or most valuable wrestler, we're kind of considering like star power, individual performance, drawing power, in-ring ability, the story behind it. So there's a lot of criteria here. And I think the other guy we're kind of considering was Taguchi, and I think Samurai just barely kind of edged him out based off the quality of his matches overall. But for me, I think the reason he didn't place a little bit higher is that in those 2 matches, the Kanemoto and Liger matches, I think both of those guys came off as the superior performer. And then in the Benoit match, you would have kind of expected it, with it being Benoit, for that match to have trended higher, and it just kind of didn't. And even in that match, Benoit was the superior wrestler. So while I think Samurai is really great and I think he stands out a lot, that's the reason I kind of got him at number 5.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. Yeah, some great matches, but like you said, this wasn't the standout guy in any of those matches, but still delivered great multiple performances throughout this project.
At number 4, we have Koji Kanemoto.
Yeah, this is a guy that I've been saying has kind of walked away as one of my unknown favorites in 7 tournament finals. Just having a lot of real great matches. We talked about the Samurai match, the match with Dr. Wagner Jr., the Prince Devitt match. He's had a lot of really good matches. Pretty consistent, I would say. I mean, he had some really high highs, but then kind of afterwards, he was kind of in that 3.75 to 4-star range and was still pretty consistent and just multiple appearances, worked, had adaptable styles with high flying and kind of a shoot style. And overall, just a really solid guy throughout this project.
Yeah, with how many appearances he had, it's kind of surprising we never got a Koji Kanemoto Liger final. But I mean, even after, so like the Kanemoto Samurai and Kanemoto Wagner Jr. matches are clearly his top end stuff. But I mean, like, I personally really liked the Kendo Kashin match. I also personally really liked the Kakihara match. I do think you see, once you get to 1999 from that point forward, you see a pretty steep drop off in terms of star rating, quality of the matches. But with that being said, I mean, Kanemoto was in 7 finals. And, like Jeremy mentioned earlier in the podcast, even in years where he didn't finish in the finals, he was in, the semifinals or at the top of his block. So, I mean, he was a big star during that, even if it was a down period, like he was always near the top and always all the way up until 2009?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you talk about, that's like a decade where this guy was at the tip top here. So I think the one thing that kind of hurts him a little bit is just, the guys ahead of him probably had peaked higher when it came to overall match quality, but like he did drop off slightly in some of those matches later on.
Yeah. If he had some higher quality matches towards the end there, he probably could have been a little bit higher on the list.
He might have had an argument for being like close to number 1, number 2. It's hard to say. So
at number 3, we have Kushida.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about number 2 in a second, but I think we were like at a point where like 2 and 3 are like basically tied. It just depends on how you look at things. But for me with Kushida, this is my personal opinion, I don't think anyone was as consistently high performing as Kushida. And what I mean by that is the other 2 guys we have ahead of him probably had, in some cases, better matches or other reasons we ranked them ahead of Kushida. But as far as consistently performing at a high level during these finals, you look at his 3 matches, the Kyle O'Reilly match, the match with Will Ospreay, and then the match with Ricochet, and like he's at such a high level in all 3 of those matches. All 3 of those matches are classics. Like Kushida, he's kind of the guy that helped bring junior wrestling, the division, back. So I mean, I think the one thing is like the fact that he wasn't a bigger star or didn't draw as well as maybe these other 2 guys when it comes to the finals, the one thing that kept him out. But in terms of like personal performance, he's at the top of the list.
Yeah, Kushida was phenomenal in his 3 final appearances and overall had some great tournaments those years, and definitely a guy that's going to be missed kind of going forward in this division and what he brought to it.
Number 2, we have the aerial assassin, Will Ospreay.
Yeah, I mean, what can we say, man? Will is phenomenal. We talk about the 2019 match, probably the best overall final match in junior history, best Super Junior history. The Taguchi match and the Kushida match.
And the Kushida match.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that the Kushida match, when it occurred, people were talking about that being like the best junior match in Super Junior's finals history. And then he kind of like turned around and topped it a couple years later with Shingo. And not only that, but like you look at the match with Taguchi and it's like, look at the level, even though like he was still green, and look at the kind of like performances this guy had. The other thing too is like under Will, if Kushida kind of reestablished this division, Will brought it to newer heights with, once he kind of took over the division, they did bigger business. Overall, the division is healthier. There have been points where people have been like, well, what is there left for Will to do? And it's like, I don't know, but the division is healthy. There was times where Kushida was on top and it was like, it's like, when's Kushida going to come off that belt? He's got a stranglehold. It's never really been like that with Will too much. The only problem people had was like when he was, wrestling heavyweight instead of while he was the junior champ. But I mean, you have to go with Ospreay over Kushida. I mean, Ospreay had arguably the greatest junior match in history, and brought the division back to a point where they could do Sumo Hall. So I mean that's a big deal.
Yeah. So then that leaves us with number one, the top MVP of the tournament, the most valuable wrestler of this final countdown would be Jushin Thunder Liger. Multiple tournament final appearances, multiple appearances throughout the tournament. His final matches were great. He obviously the biggest star to come out of these tournaments, and just a big star, big drawing power, and just the career he had was just incredible.
You look at the finals matches he had. He wrestled Honaga. He made Honaga. He wrestled El Samurai. He made El Samurai. Who else did he wrestle? Eddie Guerrero. At the time, that was the most significant win of Black Tiger or Eddie Guerrero's career at all, period, up to that point. He helped make Eddie.
Delphin.
He also, Delphin. He like put Delphin on the map, and then, put in a fantastic performance against Minoru Tanaka. 5 appearances. That's the second most of anybody. And, the only guy you can kind of compare him to when it comes to appearances is Kanemoto. And you look at Kanemoto's 7 appearances, you compare it to Liger's 5, and Liger trends much higher. Business was much better when Liger was on top, more so than any other junior heavyweight ever in history. I mean, they were doing huge arenas for these super junior tournaments when Liger was on top. You listen to the pops that he got. He was also very giving. Like, he didn't win all these tournaments. Like, he put over Honaga, gave him the title. Like, the other thing too is like, it was very clear with him, even if his matches didn't live up to the same level, say the Ospreay or Kushida matches were, he as a performer was always the standout guy in all the matches he was in. The only one that you might argue that maybe he wasn't was like the Black Tiger match, him and Eddie. And that's really saying something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they were all classics, every single one of them. And, from a kayfabe perspective, in 2001, he went undefeated and swept the whole tournament. Like, he's the first guy to ever do that. So, he won the tournament as champion. Like, there's a lot of reasons that Liger is still the MVP. I mean, I'm not surprised.
So now we move on to the top 10 matches of the tournament. And so like I mentioned, we took the star rating averages from my star ratings and Josh's star ratings to get this 10 list. So starting at number 10.
But before we do this, do you have any honorable mentions?
For matches?
That didn't make this top 10. Anything that you like, that you feel are like right outside that you liked a lot?
I think there were some fringe candidates. I would say like Prince Devitt and Kota Ibushi, Minoru Tanaka, and Liger.
I think you liked Liger Delphin too.
Yeah, Liger and Delphin, and those would be the only ones.
I liked Kakihara and Kanemoto a lot. I really liked Honaga and Liger almost enough to where I feel like the 4-star that we ended up giving it initially is probably too low, honestly. But yeah, let's start this off. So at and we've already reviewed these, so we don't even have to discuss them. This is just our definitive list. Ricochet and Kushida at number 10.
At number 9, Jushin Thunder Liger and El Samurai.
At number 8, we have Kota Ibushi and Ryusuke Taguchi.
At number 7, Liger versus Black Tiger.
At number 6, we have Wagner and Koji Kanemoto.
Number 5, we have Kushida versus Will Ospreay.
At number 4, Hiromu and Taiji Ishimori.
At number 3, Kushida versus Kyle O'Reilly.
At number 2, we have El Samurai versus Koji Kanemoto.
And then number 1, the top match of the final countdown, Shingo Takagi versus Will Ospreay.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The Samurai and Kanemoto match ended up being like number 2, and when I had you review that as recommended match, you were not that high on it.
I told you, man. The second time I watched it, man, it was like a different match.
Nice. So that's it. That's the final countdown. We have finally count everything down.
Yep, that's it. We're done with this project. Well, we have the bonus episode whenever we can get, as soon as Harold May sends our footage of the 05 and 08 Best Super Juniors. We will do a bonus episode of that.
We're going to be cutting this episode, or, all those together and releasing one final countdown episode that is encompassing of all the, segments that we've done over the past 6 weeks. It will be time stamped. It will be awesome. Big shout out and thank you to anybody that assisted us in this project. Chris Sams, Damon McDonald,
Dylan Fox.
Dylan Fox. God, I don't want to forget anybody in particular. There was a lot of people that helped us.
Yeah, there's several Reddit users, Twitter followers, people pointing us in the right direction and kind of putting us in the right way. So, yeah, big shout out to everybody who's helped us find footage and get us footage. Big shout out to all of you who've been following along with the project and watching the matches and listening every week.
Dan Ganetti and the great Riki, the guys from Tokan Retsuden, Chris Bryan, from Grown Man Watch This Shit. Just a lot of great people that helped us with this. And I'm glad it's over. I'm glad we did it. And it was awesome.
Yep. So before we head out here, recommended match of the week. Last week I recommended to you the Shibata-Nagata match.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I watched it today. I loved it. I think that this is the modern day epitome of what modern strong style wrestling is. This was sort of like the feud that they ended up having later, either in 2015 or 2016, where it was about Shibata regaining his placement in the company and, earning the respect of the elder generation. And that story was kind of told here, but on a smaller microcosm. And so you had Shibata being disrespectful to, the older but still very viable Yuji Nagata. And these guys, they kicked the crap out of each other. The wrestling was fantastic. I watched this and I thought to myself, if they did this in an empty arena, it would still pop me and still get over because it's so violent. I loved the moment where they were on the outside trading elbows until the 19 count, and then both had to dive in because they just wanted to kill each other.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But ultimately, Nagata picks up the win here with his bridging Saito suplex, and the match is just visceral. It is violent. It is really crazy. It goes. I don't remember how long. I went 4.5 on the match, though. It's that good, and I loved it. And if you haven't seen it, this might be the best Nagata Shibata match, and they've had some bangers.
Nice. So what's the recommended match for this week?
What I wanted to say was I think that this might be the height, the next level of Young Lions matches, but done at a higher skill level, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
very dojo oriented. That was going to be our announcement, was that we were going to go on a hiatus with the recommended matches of the week.
That's right. For the chosen topic are the 3 matches that we pick for the chosen topic will be your quote unquote recommended matches of the week for you guys to go and watch. So that'll be on a hiatus until we kind of finish up with the topic project and New Japan comes back. So, like I mentioned, voting will be live noon Eastern time on Tuesday. So as you're listening to this, it probably would be up already. It'll be up for 24 hours. This week's poll theme is Bullet Club leaders. So you'll be voting on Prince Devitt, AJ Styles, Kenny Omega, Jay White, the winning leader. The episode will be dedicated to that leader. Me, Josh, Chris Samsa, we will each pick matches, and we will kind of do a deep dive on that Bullet Club leader. Also, your questions are welcomed for that about that leader, or just random questions like we always have. So that's still in play.
Awesome. Well, man, it's been a privilege and a pleasure. I'm glad we did this project.
Yes, great. So get ready for next week and see who our Bullet Club leader episode is going to be on. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation. socialsuplex.com/donate. Click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. The show is at KI Strong Style. I'm at Jeremy L. Donovan. You can find us also at Social Suplex on Facebook. We are facebook.com/Social Suplex, facebook.com/groups/Wrestling Squared Circle. Also on Instagram, we are at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I am the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You can find us on Discord, Social Suplex. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. Grown Men Watch This Shit, hosted by Jeremy Tate and Chris Bryan. Get in the Ring with Danny and Beast Mike. And Saturdays, All Things Elite with Floyd Johnson Jr., Amy O, and Tiffany. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating, and review. We'll catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.